because you guys didn't want to get sick from her. That's what
Yeah.
so we're still on for Sunday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
at what do you call it?
Sicilian. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is this new microphones, or since the last time? Or? It looks the same. And I want to hear about this.
Not bringing donuts from California. These are vitamin donuts. It's okay. Yes.
Today, my brother stands
How are you?
Well, it's 5 o'clock, so we'll get the meeting underway. The meeting will come to order. This is a regular meeting of the Carefree Town Council. And Town Clerk, please take a silent roll call. And the Pledge of Allegiance, MCSO Captain David Latorno, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. And I would just remind everyone, if you have a chance to come up and speak into the microphone so what you're saying can be captured and everyone can hear you, and the same goes for everyone up here. And also we YouTube stream the videos so you can watch it at home or people can watch it later. So we want them to be able to hear and see you. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed here under are considered to be routine by the Town Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be discussed separately. Item 1, approval of the October 3rd, 2023 Town Council regular meeting minutes. We'll defer that because that's not complete. Number 2, acceptance to the public record of the September 2023 paid bills. 3, acceptance to the public record of the October 2023 paid bills. Item 4, acceptance of the cash receipts and disbursements report for August 2023. Item 5, acceptance of the cash receipts and disbursements report for September 2023. Item 6, approval of the closure of Ho-Hum Streets on Saturday, November 11th, 2023 from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. for the Carefree's Veterans Day celebration. So I'd like to pull item number 6. And then would anyone else like to pull any of the other items?
You're pulling 6 because that's the wrong time.
Correct. Okay, hearing none, I would accept a motion for the approval of consent agenda items 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Motion to accept consent agenda items 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item number 6, we need to correct the times for the closure. Veterans Day is from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., so the street closure should be from 1:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. And I would, if everyone agrees, I would accept a motion to approve item 6 as amended.
I make a motion to accept item 6 as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, current events. First thing, just to remind everyone, if you wish to speak to an agenda item, we have slips that you can fill out. You fill it out, mark the agenda item you'd like to speak about, and then we'll give you an opportunity during the discussion of that agenda item to speak, and speak for 3 minutes. And then if you wish to call to the public, you fill out the same form, check call to the public, and you have an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes then. So just to remind you. And when you fill them out, just give them to the town clerk, and she'll get them to me. We have a new communications manager, Madison Garrett. Please stand up. So she's been with us now for 12 days. And if you... And I'm sure you've seen some of her products, some of her emails and social media and so forth. It's like she's been here for 2 years and not 2 weeks. So she's doing a great job. So thank you, Madison. A few other items. There's a special use permit that many of you are aware of where an applicant has come to us to consider storage units on the corner of Bloody Basin and Cave Creek Road. So they've organized a community meeting on Thursday, November 9th at 5:30 p.m. in this town council chambers. So it's a good opportunity to, 1, learn what they're proposing, and 2, let them know what you think about it. Then the following day, the 10th, we have our third community conversations. So it's an opportunity for you to sit down and talk to me, and this time, the Vice Mayor and Councilwoman Sheila Amorosa in the Visitor Center. So Friday, from 9 to 11, it's during the farmer's market, so an opportunity to walk to the farmer's market and come and talk to us. I've found it to be very enjoyable and productive. So I hope you can just stop in. At your convenience, just come on by. And then on the following day, November 11th, we have Veterans Day on Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. in the town garden. So we have 3 speakers, a gentleman who served in the Korean War, so in the Vietnam War, and a graduate from Cactus Shadows High School who went through Veterans Heritage Project, interviewed 20 veterans, and now she's a U.S. Air Force captain. So it's a great program, great music. We have a choir who's going to be singing something we haven't had before, and I've heard them, and they're just wonderful. So if you can make it Saturday, 3 p.m., it'll be great. Also, we'll talk about the general plan. So you can go to our website, and until December 1st, you can comment on the general plan. And I encourage you to do so. You can read it, you can access it, and then comment. And when you comment, disclosing your name is optional. So if you're hesitant to do that, you don't have to disclose your name, or you can put your name if you're comfortable. But we want your input on the general plan, so please do that. At the last meeting, we announced we had some planning and we had a planning and zoning vacancy. We now have 5 applicants. The opportunity to apply has closed, and at the next council meeting in December, we will appoint one of those applicants to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then, it's hard to believe, but December 2nd is Kiwanis Christmas, and then that night is tree lighting. Our council meeting is on December 5th, so these things will go down prior to our next council meeting. So just to alert you to that. It's all good. And then our next agenda item, so that concludes current events. Does anyone else have anything else to add? Okay, hearing none. Item number 8 on the agenda, presentation and discussion by Bill Dalzell, Interim Superintendent of Cave Creek Unified School District. So welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Crane, Vice Mayor Croyer, members of the council. It's my pleasure. Check. Oh, I'm on now. All right. So Mayor Crane, Vice Mayor Croyer, members of the council, it's my pleasure to be here tonight. Just to quickly introduce myself, I know a few of you up on the dais, but I assumed a new role in Cave Creek Unified School District July 1, and I'm currently the interim superintendent. And I just wanted to be sure the public and the town of Carefree really actually understood there was a new person, a new sheriff in town, so to speak. Wanted to quickly just tell you a little bit about myself so everybody can hear kind of where my thoughts are. And again, that first slide was together. That's our theme this year. I will say that it's been my pleasure working together with the town of Carefree. Our Carefree Cares Award program, I think, is outstanding. And again, just so you hear it straight from my mouth, anything we can do to continue to enhance or improve our relationship, I'm all about. These are my 5 bosses. I know you've got a packed agenda, so I'm going to go quick. Ultimately, a little bit about me. I moved out here in 1999 from Connecticut. Went to UC Irvine. Anteaters are ferocious when cornered, so it's a great mascot. I've been in CCUSD for 23 of the 25 years, either as a teacher, coach, principal, administrator, district administrator. So this really is my home. We moved out here from a small town in Connecticut and found this area specifically for that. Again, started July 1st. Sports, outdoors, gaming, family, and the best promotion I've ever gotten in my life so far, I became a new grandpa 8 months ago. Backpacked and hitchhiked through Africa for 6 months, and I share that just as a fun fact because that kind of brings us into some of the things I'll talk about real quick. Again, our theme being together in our district. I love this quote for the raindrop. Joy is entering the river. As a bunch of separate raindrops, we can wet a rock. As a bunch of raindrops in a river, we can carve a Grand Canyon together. So those are the powerful things we can do when we're together. Little story about Africa. I actually took all those pictures while I was there. What a lot of people don't know about Africa, though, is there's a Maasai tribe. It's one of the fiercest warrior tribes in the savannah in Kenya, is their major area. They protect the village from lions, all of those things with nothing but spears typically and things like that. But when a Maasai warrior returns back to the village, the greeting from warrior to warrior is Kasaria in Guerra. And they are hoping for the response, Sapati in Guerra. And that Kasaria in Guerra actually translates to, and how are the children? So a warrior gets back to the village, and the first question they're asking about is, how are the kids doing? And then they're hoping to hear they are doing well, because they realize one of the absolute fundamental indicators of how well a town, a village, a city is doing is how well are the children doing. So again, we start every one of our meetings this year with those phrases. My topic areas this year are communication, safety, and achievement. Just so you know where we're focusing. Authentically being there and present and communicating is really what I'm after. Safety, we say that's number one, but show me where you spend your time and your money, and that's what your priorities are, so we're spending more time and money in terms of developing a whole system-wide safety program in the district. And then achievement, it's not just test scores. I want everyone from our bus drivers to our superintendent. If we all achieve more, the kids' achievement is going to take care of itself. Little bit of a transition. For years, Cactus Shadows has really been hyper-focused on absolutely college, college, college. That is not wrong. That is not bad. However, I think as we learn about today's future, I really want our kids in 12th grade ready for whatever E they choose. Whether they were ready to go get employed, because there are some people that can graduate from my high school with a technology certificate to go right into the workforce and make $60,000, $70,000. That's not a bad life. Whether they want to serve our country and enlist, if that's their choice, or whether they want to continue their education right away and enroll. So if we can get them ready for whichever E they choose, we're doing a good job. I'll skip over the quick facts about the district. Just know land-wise, we're a really big district. Our graduation rate is skyrocketing or is really high, 96%. The other thing I'm very proud of, it just came out actually before I gave you this presentation. It came out since. Our district was again rated an A by the state. I will say I love competition. I don't shy away from it. So private schools, charter schools, I welcome all of that. We bested all the charter schools in all of our performance and things like that are local in the area. We can't talk about private schools because they don't do the same tests that we do. We've got 1 online school, 5 elementary schools, 1 middle, 1 high. Again, for time, I'll kind of zip through these. But there's something for everybody, and I guess that's what an ask I'll get to. Black Mountain's our school of arts. There's an arts focus. Desert Sun is our uniform school, also project-based learning. Desert Willow was the first Spanish immersion public school in the state and is still a model for people to come and tour. Horseshoe Trails has our horsemanship program. They're a National Blue Ribbon school. Hey, Lone Mountain is our STEAM school, so they focus on technology, math, the arts, engineering. Sonoran Trails then takes all of those 5 different programs and combines them into one school where all our students come there, and then they fly up to our flagship with the Falcons at Cactus Shadows as well through 12th grade. Again, just speaking in terms of what asks I might have, I would ask that you please tell people that you know that Cave Creek Unified has a tremendous education program and we can find a place for their child. I believe it's a great small town feel. Again, that's why I'm here. That's why a lot of our parents, teachers, and all of that come here, is because they want the small town feel that's in Cave Creek while providing a great education. And watch for any events. You are always welcome to any events. Next Tuesday, if you're not busy, there's a board meeting that I know a couple of mayor and vice mayor. I appreciate you being there, but anybody is welcome for those Carefree Awards. And then the last thing is really, we've never created a profile of a graduate, and that's the last ask I have of you. My email's up there. This is not, I didn't want my daughters, who are both graduates of Cactus Shadows, to leave being able to do a linear formula. I wanted them to have grit, resiliency, to be learners, to be able to communicate. All these things, we want to come up with what are the skills and abilities and what qualities do we want our students to have when they graduate. So whichever E they choose, they're ready because they have these things. And again, because it's not Bill Dolezal, it's not Cave Creek, we're talking to business leaders, we want to talk to our city leaders that are in our district. What are those things that you want our 12th graders leaving with that you feel are important? We can really put together a good profile of what a person who leaves our district looks like and what skills and qualities they have. And that will help guide us down the road in terms of all our decision making, because if that's what we're going for, that might even change some of the programs that we currently have in that. So again, contact information is up there. I'm open. I would love to hear from anyone. And with that, I will conclude my presentation. I hope I stayed under time.
No, you're great. Thank you very much. Council, any questions or comments?
Just a comment, Mr. Dole, is all. When I ran into you about a month ago and you talked about the interim tag, I told you that we all have an interim tag. And so you're, in my opinion, having known you and educated my kids and been their principal as well at Sonoran Trails, I know that you've definitely put in the time and you started at the bottom, essentially at, with the schools. And so you know the rigors and the struggles that are occurring now, and you know the fact that we've had difficulty in passing a bond election, and we need it. And we definitely have to continue to strive to get the message out to our residents. And what's unique about our district is that we touch 5 municipalities. We're not just Carefree, we're not just Cave Creek.
Absolutely.
We're Scottsdale, we're County Island, we're Phoenix. And so having to do that outreach to those communities to spread the word so that we can educate our kids and have high quality education in schools, and not just schools filled with substitute teachers because we can't keep our teachers because we can't pay them. It's frustrating, and I dealt with it firsthand, but we appreciate your efforts, and I support you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I appreciate it. And I did vow that I would not, although I have an I in front of my title, I'm going to do whatever I can to make this district better, as if I don't, because that's what our kids deserve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Welcome aboard.
Okay, thank you, well said. And the Veterans Heritage Project we talked about earlier, that's going to be out here on Veterans Day, they've been in existence for 20 years working out of the Cactus Shadows High School. So they're very, as a whole, they're very veterans focused at the school. All right, item number 9, introduction of Maricopa County Sheriff's Office District 4 Captain David Letourneau. Review and discussion of MCSO service within the town of Carefree. Captain.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Like you said, my name is Dave Letourneau. I'm not new to the district up here. I was a lieutenant here several years ago. New recently, a month and a half in. I have 32 years on with the office, been a captain going on for 15 years. I've been a commander at several other places. I was the commander up in Fountain Hills, our District 1, which is East Mesa, the contract city, Guadalupe. Very familiar with the area. Mayor, when we met the other day, like I told you, no big changes. If there's any changes, it will be improvement. I'm not going to take anything away. I know we spoke about increasing traffic when we run traffic or traffic stops. So I've already implemented a plan where my guys will start being more visible on the main strip through Carefree and Cave Creek. Try to slow cars down. We'll address that head on. Our top priority is calls for service, responding in a timely fashion, increasing our response times, the stuff that's important to the town, which I'm very familiar with that. My guys are very familiar with it. So no big changes from Captain Brandemart, who has since retired. More of the same, hopefully improve communication and just working for a common goal.
Great. Well, thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Glad to see you. And
Thank you.
any questions or comments from the council?
No, just
Well, I do. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome to our community. I'm wondering what your impression is of replacing four-way stop signs, four-way stops that people blow through, with a traffic circle and slowing people down. What is your impression of that?
Well, I would refer a lot of that to town engineers, and can it be designed? Is it cost effective? I know that Cave Creek has recently done a traffic study, and I'm not sure if you guys have yet. That certainly would slow it down and make it safe, but it would probably be big costs. Cave Creek last night was speaking about funneling the traffic into, instead of 4 lanes, down to 2 to slow things down. Our goal right now on my end the sheriff's office end will be to be more visible, a visible deterrent. Hopefully that slows it down. The costs are, that's, you guys will have to make that decision. Certainly, I would hope that four-way stops slow it down. They also talked about what they call tabletop, speed tabletops, which is instead of a speed bump, it's a longer 25 to 30 foot to slow it down. Some of the people that showed up at their meeting last night complained, their horse people, their trailers, that it would not go well for their horses or their trailer and the flex in the trailer. The engineer, the town described that it wouldn't be, you know, there was back and forth from both sides. I don't believe they voted it in, and the vote was to conduct a study to move in that direction. It's something you guys would have to decide. We'd certainly back you up on anything you decided. It would be a cost. Is it cost effective?
Right. But it does slow down.
Yeah, roundabouts, tabletops. The thing with the tabletop speed bump, they said, the engineer said that the study showed you could hit that at the speed limit, 30 miles an hour, and you would be okay. Once you got into the 40-mile-an-hour range, then you better slow down or it could be disruptive to the vehicle. That was what their study showed. But yeah, anything would slow it down, but are you gonna get completely away from speeders? My answer to that would be no.
Well, it was just really people running stop signs and creating accidents. And so this whole speeders on you know, the Tom Darlingtons and Cave Creeks, and that's different, but
As big a problem as what you're describing, which is valid, a lot of foot traffic is probably the bigger liability that you have to worry about. And they also are talking about better lit crosswalks, raised crosswalks. It's just, that's part of their plans. It's something that can be considered, you know, depending on where you wanted to do it up on your end. They're talking right focused down there amongst all the restaurants and bars.
thank you.
So I do have a question. So we had a series of workshops talk about traffic calming. One of the questions that came up was, is it possible to have an empty car?
We discussed that the other day. It's possible. We can do it. We're not opposed to doing it. We have vehicles that we can use that don't meet patrol standards, or they're just older or mild out. But the public, they'll get onto that. They'll see nobody's in it. I mean, our windows are pretty dark. You have to get right on top of it. But it is a tactic that we'll do it. We'll do it.
Move it around.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's a low cost effective way
Sure.
to knock the
Visible
traffic speed
deterrent.
down a
Yeah.
little bit.
Right.
And we also talked about a program like having coffee with a cop, so maybe a couple times a year. So we'll bring you in and
Right.
your other officers.
Coffee with a Cop is a national program that we partake in. We just had it. This time we chose two spots. One was at the Grotto down in Cave Creek, and the other we did one up in Anthem, very successful. But that doesn't mean we can't do it like we spoke several times throughout the year. We would still probably piggyback and call it Coffee with a Cop, but we can call it anything we want.
Yeah.
It's just a meet and greet.
Exactly. Well, people
Right.
understand what that means. I think it's
Right.
a great idea, because folks have a lot of questions, a lot of maybe
Sure.
some misunderstandings, misperceptions, and we can,
My guys and I are all for it. It's been very successful. I enjoy doing it.
we'll do it, maybe a couple times a year, something
Sure,
like that. I think
sure.
That's great. Any other comments or questions? So we have one public comment or question. So please limit yourself to, I'm not sure what's going on here, 9 minutes, or limit yourself to 3 minutes. It's agenda item number 9. Ariane Busser.
Hi, yes, Ariane Buser, nice to see you all. Actually, I have a question for the sheriff. I actually called the sheriff's office a couple of weeks ago because the speeding on Cave Creek Road before Mule Train is unbelievable. We are in the middle of the night, several nights in a row, there actually was a car that went by and it sounded like gunshots. Like, I kid you not, and it was multiple nights in a row. I think these people are coming from the bars in Cave Creek, but these people are not locals. They don't live around here. They see Cave Creek Road as basically their own speeding zone. And, sorry, I'll face the camera. And I was trying to talk to the sheriff, but they see it as their own drag race, and they go up and down Cave Creek Road. They blow through that stop sign that's on Mule Train in Cave Creek Road all the time. I just saw like 3 people do it today, by the way. It is really unsafe. And that was in broad daylight, mind you. But so I don't know if the sheriff, I actually wanted to mention the vacant car idea because I've seen it work elsewhere. And I think it would be great for the non-residents because they would see that police car empty, even though it was empty, we would know it was empty, but they would see that police car and they would hopefully slow down. But I tell you, on the weekends and even during the day, the noise ordinance that's posted, no one ever adheres to that. And the sound that comes off of that road with people speeding up and then using their mufflers, I mean, it's actually really horrific. So I don't know what there is able to be done about it, but it is extremely disruptive, and they are obviously not going the 35 miles an hour. So if we had a vacant car parked out there or something like that, or even just more monitoring of that area, especially on the weekends, when a lot of the bar traffic is coming through and you get the Harleys and the UTVs at all hours of the night, I think that would really help because right now it's very, very dangerous. I can hear the cars like literally speeding from downtown Carefree all the way down Cave Creek Road until they get to Pima. You know they are going at least 60 plus. They are like full out speeding on that road, and the noise is just unbearable. So anyway, just wanted to call that to everyone's attention. I'm sure people have complaints of this as well, but I did actually call the sheriff's office about this a couple weeks ago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks for raising those comments. If you care to say anything, Captain?
And not to go back and forth, but I assure you, I know you're right, but it's not just out-of-towners. There are residents in town that are speeding also. And when we attacked this, when I was here years ago, we went at it hard. We were asked to back off because then the town residents were complaining that they were getting tickets. So to be fair, it's everybody. It's not just out-of-towners. And you're right, the bar crowd is a problem, and the motorcycles and the Harleys and the custom choppers with the pipes, they're loud, and I just got up here, give me a chance, we'll start reeling it in, but it's not gonna go away.
Captain, I have a question for you.
Prove it.
Sorry to interrupt
Sure.
you, right here, me.
Sure.
Noise ordinance, how can we test? There used to be devices to do, is there
There's
something that we can set
decibel
up?
meters.
Okay.
We do not have them. Your code enforcement guy probably should have that, but it's gonna require after hours because your noise problems are at night. The bar crowd, the motorcycles, and there are bikes and pipes on the bikes that exceed the decibel level, but you gotta get the reading and you gotta make the stop immediately. You know, so it requires the reading and a traffic stop and then address it, if it's the motors. There are cars that exceed it too, but I wonder also if there are businesses when maybe live bands kick off, that exceeds it. I don't know, but a decibel meter would have to give you that reading. And I don't know if you have one yet. I know that, I know from experience that Scottsdale has them.
If our code enforcement officer is equipped with one, and he happens to be randomly out checking, and he documents, gets a license plate number, and with that documented decibel reading, is that something that can be turned over to your office to follow up
Is it
on?
a
and take
town violation? Is it a code violation, town ordinance?
Yes.
He should be able to write it too, and we can help with it. We can certainly enforce town codes, but he can also do it unless you guys don't want him to do it.
Is that something we can look into with Dennis?
Mayor, members of the council, Dennis is not a certified peace officer.
So we can do
my
it.
concern would be him pulling a vehicle over. He's
And not
trained for-
pulling over a vehicle, but documenting and turning that over to MCSO.
We could do it, but it would take a coordinated event with a deputy with him at the time he takes the reading, and then we make the stop. It can be done, but it certainly couldn't be done every weekend. But we could plan in advance and do
Random.
it. Part of the other thing I mentioned to the mayor, but maybe bring up here, We have a motors unit that's about to go online, upwards of 5 brand-new BMW motorcycles that will be moved around the county and the 6 districts that we have. So there will be times where we bring them up here, 4 or 5 at a time, sometimes 2 at a time, but that'll also help with what we're talking about. And so maybe that could be a coordinated event when the motors are in town. And you can get your code enforcer to run the decibel meter, and we work in a coordinated effort and do it that way for the noise. We could do it.
It's disturbing, and and walking around in the gardens, even at night, walking our dogs, it frightens the animals too, so.
Oh, I'm sure you're right.
Captain, may I ask, what prevents you from having those meters? Is it a question of money or policy?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out. I know through the office we don't have them. I know that, and the only reason I'm familiar with it is I worked several years down in Old Town Scottsdale, providing security for the Old Town Bar District, and Scottsdale has them. That's the only reason I'm familiar with them.
I know they make sound meters that, a phone app you can download for sound meters. Is that something that's acceptable by the state on that?
I don't know that. We'll have to look into it and see.
What do you think they cost?
I have no
Not
idea.
the phone app deal, just the regular device.
I have no idea.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, if we could look into it, that'd be great.
Sure.
Solve that issue. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, Captain, thank you very much for coming out tonight. Okay, move on to item number 10. Review, discussion, and possible action to approve Resolution 2023-10, approving the 2023-2024 Strategic Economic Development Work Plan. Mr. Prokopek,
Mayor,
or you are.
Council, I'm going to sit over here just in case there's people that want to comment and question. I'm not getting up and down and everything else, so. I feel like I'm here for my monthly meeting for economic development, and I appreciate it. Yeah, this is important stuff, and I'm glad we've had a really good conversation around economic development and priorities and where we really need to spend the next 24 months and where you want me to spend my time and the effort for the town. So, kind of go back through just a touch, we've gone through looking at the plan, and I'm not going to rehash the plan altogether, but really kind of just go through the things that we talked about in the last meeting, which was really the removal from the northwest corner from the list of priorities for this planning period, which is the resort site, which is fine. It doesn't mean we don't stop if somebody were to come in. It just means that it's not the priority for what we're going to be focused on. And then the true economic development priorities that we do have is the northeast corner for Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road, town center revitalization. Obviously we're going to be working on those issues, and then enhancing the business environment, which is really important because for us to really be able to grow revenue, to be able to bring the types of businesses and the retail businesses in particularly, and fostering that growth and development of those businesses in our town center is a big component to who we are when we look at our local business community, but also making sure that we can look at the businesses that generate the significant amount of revenue to our town, that they're successful as well. So we're going to be really focusing very heavily on making sure we have good relationships with places like Lowe's, all of the merchants that within town, and really just the businesses that move the needle for us. Again, just real quick, why we do economic development. We're a sales tax funded town. We're one of the few that does this. And so when you're a sales tax funded town, economic development really becomes kind of the priority. And since you don't have the property tax base and you're really dependent upon visitors paying the bills around town for whether it's our services or the infrastructure that we need for roads or whatever, making sure that the gardens are maintained. And then that means we just need to look at creating sustainable opportunities for revenue. And in this town, there's very limited opportunities for that type of revenue generation that we'll need to be able to make sure that we can provide, police services and fire services and making sure that our roads are clean and drivable. We're looking at traffic mitigation. We're even talking about the potential of having a park in the future. Somehow there's going to be some type of operations that may be necessary. So when we start looking at all the things that we need and all the things that the community is looking at, making sure that we have the resources to be able to accomplish those goals is absolutely important. And our opportunities are limited to our town center. So right now, we're looking at the northeast corner, and then we have the northwest corner. And outside of that, that's pretty much it. And so it's we need to be careful with how we manage this. And then again, it comes down to this real threat of what really we're facing as we move forward as a community. Again, as we move towards build-out, our real threat is that we have diminishing construction sales tax, which is a one-time tax that we get on construction, which generally has been used for us to build our capital program. And so if we don't have that, and we're minimized on that, we got to still figure out how we save for our capital programming, and then how we can pay those bills, as well as looking at the cost of contracted labor going up, in particular with public safety. So, and then there's other things that we can look at here. We've lost the residential sales tax. They're threatening the grocery tax as well. And then just fluctuation in market economics. We saw what happened with CVS. They consolidated, and then, that could happen with the Lowe's too. And that's why it's important that we have communication with groups like Lowe's and make sure we understand these things. Again, looking at the northeast corner of Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road, we are actively engaged with Empire. And as a matter of fact, Sherry is here, and I think Will, okay, I didn't see him walk in. Will is here as well, and so we've been having some really good conversations with Empire, who is the owner. They've gone through a couple potential buyers for the site. I think the commitment now is to look at what's the best thing for that particular property. They've been doing some more site investigation, as looking at engineering for the wash, which is extremely expensive and at some level has been cost prohibitive for some of the developers that have looked at the site for commercial. We're looking at the opportunity for looking at flexible models that would allow us to meet the commercial needs for the town as far as sales tax, but also we can come to a win-win-win situation between the property owner developer, the town, and as well as the neighbors, because it's extremely important that as we go through these processes that the neighbors are part of that equation and are at the bargaining table to make sure that everybody wins in this particular scenario. So what I'm going to ask, though, is that just like we are on the northwest corner, when we look at the northeast corner, that we have an open mind to make sure that we meet the goals for the town when it comes to these three win-win-win scenarios. Town center revitalization is, again, focusing on town hall site redevelopment. I think it's going to be one of the priorities we're going to start focusing on. And then improving the town properties, and we're going to be hearing a presentation from Council Member Miller later. One of the things that we've been focused on is just the ground that we have in and around the gardens, and making sure that those areas within the parking lots, that they're improved properly with landscape, that they look and feel like this is a quality town. So I think this is a very, very positive step to make, and I can't wait to see if we can get that through and get that going. And then we're going to continue to work with planning on completing the signage and circulation and planning efforts. We did have a conversation with Kimley Horn today to lay out what that strategy is going to be moving forward to re-engage the stakeholder group. And so we'll be reaching out pretty shortly here to anybody who is on the stakeholder group, as well as those who are interested in the stakeholder group, with the idea that we will look at having kind of a get-together in December, and then really kind of spend January really diving in and coming to a conclusion on the signage plan, and then moving that into hopefully February, March, into the, coming to a conclusion for the conceptual idea for the comprehensive circulation and parking plan. So that's the goal. And so what we're going to ask, instead of trying to do this monthly thing like we've done with the stakeholders, is that we get people committed to just getting together in a concentrated period of time and just getting through the issues, so we can get that quickly back to council and have that evaluation. And then we'll also be looking at the design guidelines and key zoning recommendations, and that really comes out of the conversations of people's, I think the hotel was kind of the big issue that came up when people were wanting to know what we can do to have better design criteria, at least examine that. And then looking at how we can look at zoning in the town center to make sure that we're protecting against what people fear is overdevelopment or overdensification, as well as making sure that we can appropriately bring in the type of development that we want to see. And then again, working with key property owners, we're working very closely with Spanish Village on some solutions for parking. We're working with them on cleaning up some of the alleyways as well. We just had a conversation with Mayor and I with 100 Easy Street, and I think they're on a pathway to looking at ways to rebrand that particular building and try to look at the type of tenancy that they have in there over the future. And so there were a lot of positivity that's occurring with these conversations with property owners. And then looking at enhancing the business environment, and this is one of the things that we've really focused in over the summertime and even in the fall, or last spring. And that is as we come into the season, it's very important that, you know, for our businesses, and we right now do rely heavily upon seasonal traffic into the town. And so we've worked together with merchants and created kind of a loose merchant association to deal with you know, issues, as well as looking at ways that we can bring more people into the town. One of the things that we've been trying is how we can reposition ourselves as, instead of being this tourist town, as being really more of the small town feel of where people who live in the 20 to 30 minute commute can come and it's be part of that. So we're looking at expanding hours on Friday nights and maybe creating some type of evening traffic, really to kind of to drive that type of position. And then we're looking at the continued improvement of physical environments. We've already talked about that. And then events and activities. As it is right now, we've, every Saturday afternoon, we have something planned in the pavilion. And so the idea is just to bring more traffic in that's community-based, and that we can kind of keep that local and really just try to give people the better opportunity to experience Carefree. And the idea is to bring them here, and hopefully we can push them to the businesses while the businesses are open. And then I'm glad to have Madison aboard. We'll be working on our marketing and communications so we can build this particular brand, and it's going to be really hitting it hard through our social media, through our communications with our residents, and then looking at what kind of PR strategy and advertising strategy we can have going with some of these associations that we are working on. And then the next steps, you know, we've talked about, you know, what's the best solution for having a sounding board for all the things that we're working on in economic development and with the redevelopment area. And I think it just comes down to working with the Economic Development Advisory Board at this point. We already have that established. They already have the role and responsibility for looking at the redevelopment plan and making sure that we implement that. And so we're going to focus on having the Economic Development Advisory Board be that board, and on a monthly basis have workshops that we can have with that particular board. I plan on having making a presentation to them on next Monday, so anybody who wants to come in and hear a little bit further about what we're looking at as far as public outreach and the kinds of conversations we want to have in the public, please come. And so that'll be at the Economic Development Advisory Board on Monday. I think it's at 5. And then the idea is that monthly we'll have topics of conversation that will be related to economic development, and it could be related to the Northeast Corner when it's appropriate, or we'll talk about the redevelopment of Town Hall, and that way we're keeping that in the public. And then one of the items that's been brought up by a few of the residents, and I know it's been brought up as well from some council members, is looking at to better understand the revenues and costs and the economics impacting the town. And so we talk about that. We have some funding needs in the future that need to be met, but I think it's putting a little bit more meat to the bones. And so we're working with Councilmember Amoroso and Commissioner Burns have been helpful, and we're putting together some more information that we can start to bring to light and just open up that conversation as it relates to revenues and costs, and so people can better understand that. And then looking at the quarterly council updates that the mayor had recommended, we'll be doing that. And then updating stakeholder meetings for the signage and circulation, talked about that already. And then periodic community workshops, kind of similar to what we were doing with the traffic mitigation. We'll do that with economic development issues as well. So on top of the workshop sessions, we'll come back, and then we'll have periodic, if they're quarterly, updates that the people can come and provide public comment on, or, you know, if we can have some visuals and touch and feels, and just really get that input back from the community. So with that, I hope the plan addresses the issues that we specifically, you know, was requested of me to put into that particular plan, and I think it's a good plan. I think we're on a good path.
Well, thank you very much. In fact, I have to agree with you. So great job in your sustaining efforts. We outlined those tonight. That's great to see. And to Shelley and Will, I'm glad to see you here. And the development of the northeast corner is a priority. We like to see that move forward. So it's encouraging just to see you here. And I know you're speaking with Steve that's great. So any other comments or questions from council?
Steve, I have a question. Speaking of the northeast corner, we had worked with the HOA, the residents behind that corner, on some special development restrictions. Despite those restrictions, and we want to attract the right tenant to that corner, how has that process been going?
For the northeast corner?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's where we're at right now, is they're evaluating the types of tenants that would be interested in going to that particular corner. They're looking at all the different types of possibilities. And so, you know, I think the goal would be to look at potentially even, I think from their perspective, a phased approach of looking at the corner, looking at the 3 different parcels individually. And, you know, I don't want to get too much into the details about what they're planning specifically, you know, because I know they're still going through a lot of evaluation. But what I will say is that the idea is to keep it in line with what our expectations are, and especially with what the expectations of the community is as well.
Pertaining to the northwest corner, and when I ran the Cave Creek Museum, I had walked the property with the owner and had some discussions with him on the layout, and saw the property myself, and some ideas that he had. In terms of trying to keep it lower density over there, and obviously we'd have to go through the process on the general plan amendment and look at rezoning that property, but have you been approached with many different ideas? I know there were a couple that were floating around out there.
Councilmember Delicia, there have been a couple ideas that have been floated through. There was one that's, you know, went a little bit further than others, and it kind of varies. I would say the ones that, there was a trend to do more of like resort residential, was kind of I had 2 people come in and talk about that, which wasn't something that, it was more of a long term, and it really wasn't going to move the needle, and just, it was sounded more like apartments to me. But the other one that we're looking at was coming in with more of a resort concept, and it just comes down to whether or not the density is going to be the kind of density that would be supportable. But those are the things that we'd have to evaluate, and so, you know, there's a lot of evaluation that will have to go into that particular site.
Well, there's a lot of acreage that is not developmentable, if you can call that a word, that because you have a large wash that goes through it, and you have many boulders close to the street, so build out would be closer to the middle to the back of the property, and with that wash going through, so it would be lower density in all likelihood in those areas.
Yeah, Mayor and Councilmember Delicio, that's true. You know, with so much topography on that particular site, I would say that any development would probably be inside the wash boundary. It's just so difficult to span that wash and to get any kind of anything on the other side of that particular wash. So, based on what I've seen, that's what's been discussed, is keeping any development inside that wash boundary. And then, you know, obviously, if anybody's looked at the special planning area language, it really does address a lot of the concerns that people do have, which is, you know, the use of open space, making sure the architecture matches and blends, that the view corridors are going to have to be maintained, and then, you know, there's a lot of due diligence will have to go into making sure that it complies with the community standards I think people are expecting.
Thank you, Steve.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes. Steve, thank you for revising this. In the general plan, the special purpose sign of that property, that's still in there related to a resort of sorts. Is that still correct?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Hatcher, that's correct. It's still.
And the game plan here, according to our discussions from last go around, was to defer, as you stated, for at least the next 2 years, 24 months, on focusing on that development on that northwest corner.
That's correct, Councilman.
Okay. Is there anything, my only concern, not my only, but one of my concerns with all that, and I have other issues, but is that in the general plan it states that's pretty much what it's going to be used for, and I'm not sure that we should define it that way, because once we're gone, 5 years down the road, we've kind of put the next council in a box of what they can do or can't do. We don't know what the opportunities will be for that piece of property. Do you feel that the verbiage in the general plan is too restrictive? And Stacy, your input is always welcome, of course, on that, but how do you feel about that?
Councilmember Hatcher, you know, the reason we went through the process the way we went through the process was it really put the people who live the closest to it at the negotiating table. I mean, they basically wrote the rules, because there's no developer at that time to counteract that or to argue with it. And so, do I think it's overly restrictive? I do not. I mean, it does say resort, it does say entertainment. I think what nobody would really like to see there is more of a retail component to it. And so, yeah, while we'd like to give ourselves some flexibility, you know, that's kind of how that worked itself out. You know, obviously the council and the community could change that, but I would caution to make sure that there's good communication with the neighbors, because they were a very important component to that conversation.
But we do have, if something did come up that we don't anticipate, that could be amended. Is that correct? Regardless of what is stated in the general plan?
Councilmember Hatcher, yes, I mean, it could be amended. I mean, somebody could come in and let's say they wanted to amend the zoning, or even the council wanted to amend the zoning, or not the zoning, the general plan amendment, you could do that, yes. So if a great project came in and everybody just loved it, and it maybe didn't comply necessarily specifically with the special planning area,
Right.
but you'd have to walk through the process of going through the general plan amendment and then going through the rezoning.
I'm not,
So at the end of the day, no matter what's proposed, it still has to go through planning and zoning, has to be approved, and it has to come to this council for a vote.
Correct.
So if there are objections at that time, that's the time to object rather than have preemptive language.
Correct, Councilmember Johnson. Yeah, so as long as it's complying with the general plan,
Yes.
you know, and then it would go through the rezoning process, and that zoning would have to comply, would have to be in line with that particular general plan.
So with respect to the northeast corner, I suggest what you're doing is we roll up our sleeves and we look at our constituents, all of our constituents, including Empire, and we come up with a solution that works for everybody the best we can, which maximizes revenue to the town. And those principles should be applied to any property that's eligible for commercialization or other ways of raising revenue.
I have another question. This is with respect to the updated stakeholder meetings for signage, circulation, and parking. I haven't seen or read anywhere where we've had any discussion on the signage and how much we're going to do, what we're going to consider with respect to that, and circulation and/or parking. So do you have in there, if you, 'cause I haven't seen it, a discussion on the plan and how to implement some of the signage, and is it staged? I mean, I didn't see any discussion about that.
Councilmember Hatcher, actually, that is part of what we'll be doing, is we will have at least 2 additional meetings on the signage. And so what we're gonna do is take the existing the stakeholder group that we currently have, we're gonna add on some new members who have had shown interest in participating. And then we're gonna have, I hope is to have some type of get-together in December where we have a meet and greet. So everybody, the stakeholders get to know each other. Stacy and I would then do a presentation on how we got to where we are today. And then kind of give everybody a little homework assignment, and then come back in January, because it's just so difficult with all the holidays and to do all the scheduling, to come back in January and then be able to kind of have that group roll up its sleeves and take the plan from where it is today and get it into a format that will be something that we can bring back to council that addresses specifically what you're talking about, which is, you know, the costs, if there's ways that we can reduce the number of signs, or if we're going to look at those various aspects of it. So there'll be the quality of the sign, the quantity of sign, and then we'll look at the costs. And then
There
we'll
is
bring
no-
that back. Yep.
So
Structured plan,
Well, there-
because this was your driver, so there's no,
there is a plan, but it was tabled,
yeah.
for a number of reasons, but it was also, staggered, so that everything wouldn't happen at one time, because it's expensive. And the most important thing in my point of view was the signs that are on the outskirts of town, just letting people know. Can you guys hear me? Letting people know that there is a town in here. And then once we do that, then we get people in the town, and then we start moving them around. And that's what Kimley and Horn did, but it's expensive, and so we had talked about just phasing in different elements of it. And now we're gonna go back and we're gonna look at it again with a new stakeholder group for the
We'll call
old
it expanded stakeholder group, yep.
Expanded, yes. And just relook at it and see if we absolutely have the best plan that we can.
Let's say you do stage one and it's all in the outskirts of the town, and that's in place for 6 months or for a year? Is that kind of the idea, Cheryl?
Well, it's in place until we have more money to expand it. But,
Well,
but the key is, well, there are two keys. One is to make our signage more uniform. We have a big mishmash of different signs around town. So we want to get rid of the ones that aren't working for us, take some of the ones that are still working really well, and perhaps move them, and then get a design that we can use uniformly going forward.
All right, and so let's say we had them up for a year. Is there a way to quantify their effectiveness? And before you went to stage two, and we can quantify its effectiveness until you reach a point where
Yeah, Councilmember Hatcher?
we're at stage four and there's no real effect, then we stop. I mean, That's that kind of the approach.
Well, I'm not sure it's something that can be quantitatively defined.
Yeah.
But you're gonna get input from people. Oh, God, I hate
Well, that's
that
true,
sign.
yeah, that,
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna get input.
okay.
I'm not sure that we're gonna be able to quantify all the input.
Mayor and council members, so when we go back out, we will be going back out with the budgetary numbers, looking at the budgetary numbers per sign. We'll be looking at all the individual signs. Kimberly Horn, as part of the packet they're gonna put together for so we can do further evaluation. They're gonna talk about what the effectiveness of each one of those signs are, what they think is the best return, which signs are the most important up front. And so they're gonna give their professional opinion on those things. And then from there, we can evaluate, is there ways that we can maybe alter materials, or other ways that we can maybe just reduce the total number of signs if we need to get that cost down? Are there certain signs we just don't want at all? Or is it just an understanding that there are things that will just, maybe what we'll call, like in CIP planning, you have unfunded projects that are kind of out and far down the road, but it's worth keeping in the plan because it'd be nice if you ever had that at some point as a luxury, so,
Okay.
yep.
Mayor,
And I think,
go ahead.
so the reason we tabled it was because a lot of folks didn't know what was going on. There was questions, the very things that you're talking about. So that's why Steve's gonna go back, resurrect, or strengthen, or broaden this stakeholder group and have good discussions. And hopefully, there'll be public discussions, it'll come back, and we'll ferret it out. So that's where we are.
All right. So that's what you're saying when you have it in the plan here.
Correct.
You mentioned about improving town properties plan. That's my question. Go back a slide if you would, please. Maybe another one, please, I'm sorry. All right, improving town properties, do you have, is there a standard methodology that a municipality applies? I mean, there's no, is there a strategy attached to this that you have developed?
Yeah, Councilmember Hatcher, the strategy is really looking at what if we start looking at where we have deficiencies in town-owned property, and it could be, mostly it's in right-of-way that we have, and the glaring one is having all these little things in the parking lots that go around Easy Street, these little islands that basically are just, rock and little sticks sticking up, and so that's why we were able to get together. So is there a standard for that? That's really where we have an architect on council who kind of went in and did a design for that, and is going to present on that. And so is there a high-level plan that's put in place?
But that's part of it, what Clinton,
Yeah.
so that's part of that whole
Yeah.
process.
So we're looking at our alleyways as well. That's the other part that we're looking at. And again, we'll be working with Clinton and the property owners on how we can improve alleyways, particularly like behind Spanish Village. On both sides, one is just where you have the vacant fallen down buildings, and then the other one is between there and Los Portales, where that's the first thing you see when you walk between those two buildings is that alley, and it just doesn't scream, I want to shop in Carefree when you look down that alleyway. So, we're there, the property owners are anxious to work with us and to move forward, to start to reinvest, to be able to clean some of those spaces up to make it a little bit more attractive.
Steve, question for you. our town is a bit unique. You may or may not be aware of this in the fact that the, our tenants, our property owners, own a lot of the sidewalks, own the parking spaces, whereas in other towns, a lot of that property is city-owned. Now, when you say that the property owners are excited or enthused about participating in that process, it's gonna cost them money, and to create some uniformity, how is that going in terms of trying to get people to work together and come up with one design?
Mayor, Councilmember Delicio, I mean, you know, at this point, we're kind of looking at things from a property-to-property basis. One of the things that we need to look to evaluate, and this is why we're going to put the town hall redevelopment project a little bit sooner than later, is because we can call that almost like a keystone project, where we can actually look at exactly what we want when it comes to the type of design we'd like to see, or the type of quality, you know, the type of density. We have complete control over that, and it will allow us to kind of take that evaluative approach. You know, at this point, what we're looking at for some of these properties is just to kind of clean up the basic things. You know, can we screen grease traps? Can we, you know, and you know, things like space heaters that they put outside for patios. Can we relocate and screen trash, you know, do quick trash enclosures? In some ways, we're looking at to consolidate those. So those are the things that we're looking at right now. One of the things that we did talk about, and we were focusing on over the next 24 months, it won't be the highest priority in the short run, but it is something we'll look at, is creating a program that, you know, we've talked about this, where the town can match at some level investment into the revitalization of properties. And what you get out of that is that in that program, you define exactly what you want to see as far as quality. And so if we're going to do that, then you know, the sidewalks have to meet a certain standard, or the type of development that we see, or the paint colors. We have control over that when we put some skin in the game. So those are different ways that we can impact that, if we can't impact that specifically, maybe through a design guideline. But we're giving them something to get something. And so, and you know, the idea is that we leverage the quality we want, and we leverage the private investment as well.
Gary, how, from an accounting standpoint, how do we finance something like that? Do we have money set aside to cover some of these expenses with respect to what Steve was describing for a joint operation with our business owners?
That's certainly a policy decision that the council would need to make based upon the overall vision for the respective project. From a funding side of the equation, certainly our capital reserve funds are there to make investments in our infrastructure. What that infrastructure is in the future remains to be seen, but certainly we can position some of those funds to those investments. You could look at pledging future revenue for a revenue bond to fund this. You could look at municipal improvement districts, which is a assessment on property within commercial areas, and they all pay their proportional share based upon the size or value of the respective property. So there's a lot of tools in the tool chest to share the burden of that financial commitment, but you have to understand what that vision is and have buy-in for that respective vision, and that would take some time with the fractional property ownership that we do have.
Thank you.
Any other,
Mayor, thank you.
okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council? Hearing none, we have one public comment from Ms. Diane Roth. So please limit your comment to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, Diane Roth, live in the Boulders. Howdy to Mayor and the council. One, just listening to that, being a retailer, it made my hair catch on fire. It's no one who is going to shop is ever going to say, let's go to Carefree and look at the town hall. You know, you've got to have stores here first. You've got to be good retail here. You've got to support your good retail. Signs do not bring people to shop. Stores. If you look at a mall, what makes a mall? Their anchor stores. That's what defines all your high-end malls in this country. It's not the signs, it's the anchor stores. The only signs they care is exit off freeway, parking. The only signs you need is stores, parking for stores. Take that money, invest in your retail, invest in your town, invest in getting some PR for it. You know, that's what makes it happen. You know, what is that, Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. It's not about building a town hall. It's about building a strong retail base. The other thing is put the economic development plan off till we're working on the general plan. We're in the middle of that. There's no rush to go and put money aside to really understand what your citizens want. And what they don't want is another Hampton Inn. They don't want a water tank that right now looks like the face of an adolescent teenager with all those little teeny tiny trees on it. It look like pimples. And you're driving into town to see that. You know, you want to have something here that puts us on the map, that people say, God, go to Carefree. They're doing great outdoor things. They have great shops. It's a beautiful town. We got to beautify it. You know, that's what's important. So I think we'd all be better off if everyone took a deep breath. You have had COVID, the water tank, the property tax, the Hampton Inn. These are not positive experience. Time to bring positive, a little joy, a little happiness, get your retailers working together, and get the town looking good. That's what's important. That's what the economic plan should be about, not signs. People are ready to blow their brains out. You have more money in signs than New York City spends. You got 2 blocks. You can stand literally here and look across the town. So what do you need all the signs for? People are not that stupid. They can find the town. So let's focus on making the town better looking and bringing high-end retailers, which will generate a ton of money for you. I know, I was a high-end retailer. I know what I paid in sales tax.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Mike Braun, did you wish to speak on this item?
Mayor, can I just clarify something?
Sure, go right ahead.
The clarification on the town hall site is not to redevelop town hall into another town hall. It's to redevelop town hall into a retail space. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks. Thank you. Good.
Which would be good because that would generate sales tax.
Mike Braun.
I have been up here before and I have spoken against signs. The idea to spend $1.2 million on signs after spending $200,000 on our consultant, did you expect the consultant who we hired to look at signs to tell us we don't need signs? Because if you did, something's wrong. We don't need more signs. I've talked to Steve about this. We need some very good restaurants. Restaurants bring people into town. When you bring the people into town, they will shop. But putting signs out on Tom Darlington or Cave Creek that say Gears and Grinds are here, which is a wonderful spot, but nobody passing through there knows what that is. Think about it. As our lady just said, there's 2 blocks. How much in signage do we need? $1.2 million? I'm sorry. We could much better put that, as I've talked to Steve about, and Gary, you mentioned something earlier, and I'd love to explore that with you. There are many situations where we can join together with public money and private money. Why doesn't the town take that $1.2 million, if that's what the number is, put it into an economic development plan and bring businesses into town where we help them come here?
Okay, thank you.
Mayor. By having this, with respect to the signage issue, and having it in there, I mean, nothing precludes us over the years to change or enhance the signage of the town, right? we can do nothing with the signage, or we can add to it, modify it over the years as we see fit. But you know, I hope by having it in here means that we are going to be moving forward with, you know, huge, large capital for signage. I mean, I don't think that's what it's saying.
No, I believe what it says, we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna go
Okay.
through stakeholder meetings, folks will talk about it.
Yeah.
And we'll have comments, a variety of comments, and we'll act upon what we hear.
And I agree with, was it Bob?
Mike.
Mike Braun.
Ron? Yeah, Mike, I apologize. And Ms. Roth, of having, by spending the time and effort with respect to making our town look better and unifying some of the designs of the various storefronts and so forth, will enhance the character and the you know, quality of the vendors coming into our town. And that's how I see it. And that should be with respect to getting the areas looking good, getting the frontage of the buildings and all looking good, would be in the very forefront of economic development for the town itself, to me, versus other things that are going on. And one more comment with respect to the northeast corner. And Vince brought it up, and that was, right now, in meeting with those individuals, the HOAs and so forth, are they pretty much on board with everything that you've discussed with them with respect to potential development with Empire? Is there a lot of resistance there for any reason? Because at one time, they were all on board with us.
Mayor and Councilmember Hatcher, we actually haven't talked to any specific HOAs about anything that, I mean, Empire is looking at, obviously what to do with the particular site. You know, I think the interest may be that they would potentially develop it themselves at this point. And so they are spending money on due diligence as far as looking at what they can do with the site. They've been talking with us about how we can look at the types of potential changes, you know, or types of how the development could phase on there. There's a lot of conversations about how to, I mean, look, they're just as interested to get it developed as we are. So, so that's the conversation we're having. And as we get through that conversation, which is why I wanted to bring it up tonight, is that, you know, we will have to have at moments where we have these conversations with the Economic Development Advisory Board and with the council and with the HOAs. So, you know, and the public. So there is a process that moves forward, you know, and in cases where they will be doing things that are in conformance with the plan, then we just move forward with the plan. If there's something that's going to be a little bit of a deviation from what is currently approved, then obviously we would have to bring that back for further conversation with everybody. I mean, it's just the way it's going to have to work. And
We want everybody in that corner to be pleased with what is being
Right.
developed, that they can live with, if you will.
yeah, and it's that win-win-win situation that we've got to
Yeah,
find.
exactly.
You know, there's got to be a place where everybody can be successful, and that's what we need to find.
So just to clarify, that corner has already been zoned, that the neighbors participated in making it, and
Right.
so nothing at this point, as far as I know, has been presented that would change that. And just like the northwest corner on Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway, the neighborhood engagement survey is instructive of what the neighborhood would be okay with. And it's a high hurdle. So if you read that, they would prefer to have, you know, a small resort versus anything commercial. So what the plan reflect, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve.
So you're correct.
Okay. What the plan, is in the general plan is essentially reflective of what they would find acceptable. So nothing is zoned for that. They would have to go through that, but both of those corners are driven by the neighborhood's
Supported.
wishes, demand, I mean,
Correct.
yeah, so they're both in that same scenario, just one is zoned and one is not.
That's correct.
Johnson.
One thing I'd like to point out, just a word of caution. We start throwing numbers around, $1.2 million for signs. I sat here during the meeting when that was presented, and some of us were taken back by the amount and $78,000 for a kiosk and that type of thing. And I think the council thought we should think this over again and what's the right amount we should spend. So nothing's been committed.
Councilmember Johnson, yeah, that's correct. I mean, that's what the council had asked us to do, was to take exactly what Ms. Roth said, take a deep breath, which is what we've done. It's been several months now. We've taken the opportunity to give it, allow for people to get back from being out of town, which is usually October, November. We want to make sure that we could have, ultimate participation, and, that's why we're taking through the process we're going to take it through, and, try to refine that down. But if people don't think that we don't need signs or retail doesn't need signs, just go count the number of signs retailers put out there. We have a red car parked on the side of the road that is a big giant sign. So retail needs signs, and there's not a retail developer that will tell you you don't need signs for a retail building, and it's just the way it is. And so, for us to be able to direct people to that it's a shop and dine location and that they've arrived someplace, that's what we're doing. So when it comes down to, I think we're talking cost here, right? I mean, we've gotten off track. This is about just kind of getting the plan approved, and we will talk about signage, but the idea is that, this particular signage is, it's, every little area has it. I mean, it's just the way it is, and ours just needs to be more effective. And so if there's a cost-effective way of doing it that meets the quality standards, I think that's what the original stakeholder group came up with.
So by approving the plan tonight, with respect to the signage issue, and then we'll close, all we're saying is we're gonna look at it, we're gonna evaluate it, assess it, we'll have some people study it next few months, but we're not committing to any particular signage, any plan, any cost, etc.
Councilmember Catcher, tonight you're not committing to anything other than the fact that we're gonna go through the evaluation process that we were asked to go through, now that we have the numbers, and bring that back.
So we were asked a couple of meetings ago to table this, and it's been tabled, and it's not untabled. And,
Yeah, I know, I
so-
just wanted to,
Yeah,
'cause
so
I don't want
nothing, not a penny is being spent.
I know, but I don't want the residents here tonight thinking that the word signage is in the economic development plan, and they're gonna link it to the $1 million expenditure, that we're approving that, and we just haven't spent it yet, and that's not what I want them to believe, because that's not what we're doing,
Okay.
Correct.
okay? That's what I'm trying to make everybody
Okay,
clear.
so we started these discussions almost 6 years ago. We started talking about water 6 years ago, and it took a long time and a lot of meetings and a whole process to make sure that the residents on the west side of Black Mountain had adequate water quality. And Carefree isn't just east of Black Mountain, so that issue has been taken care of. Relocation of Town Hall, we started talking about that several years ago, and the idea behind that is that building where Town Hall is currently, however many square feet it is, 3,500, 4,000 square feet, whatever it is arguably the most desirable retail location in this town. And we talked about potentially relocating the Town Hall to put something there that would be very desirable for retail. So that addresses the retail issue. And not just trying to relocate Town Hall for purposes of beautifying Town Hall. It would be someplace else. We need to pass this economic development plan because it gives you a framework to work with, not to be rogue, not to take things into your own hands, but to follow a roadmap and to bring those recommendations back to us, of which we will yay or nay on. And it if anything, it provides more of a focused roadmap for you of which to work on, of a compilation of past recommendations that we have put together. The whole idea of the signage started 4 years ago, and I was part of that panel that vetted many vendors to look at ideas. And it's not spending $1.2 million altogether. It was, what if we wanted to do X? What would that look like? What if we wanted to phase something in? What would that look like? So obviously we're adults here, and we wanted to see what the all-encompassing would be, It doesn't mean we're gonna go out and do it tomorrow, but it means that we have an idea of what something could look like. So, that being said, we need to pass this economic development plan. It gives you a framework.
Yeah, Councilmember DeLucia, and I appreciate that. And that's what this is. It's just it's a to-do list. Anything that has to do with any approvals has to go through a process. More than likely, it's gonna go through the Economic Development Advisory Board of Planning and Zoning, and then it's gonna come to you. So,
It's simply, it's a work plan.
it's exactly what it is.
So you have some additional public comments. Mr. John Trainer?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. John Trainer, 23-year Carefree resident. Once again, I did not intend to speak this evening. I didn't fill out my slip until a few minutes ago, but some discussions come up that prompt comments or prompt further discussion. And as I've mentioned to at least one or two of you in the past, what this town needs for this kind of activity is a town hall meeting, not a council meeting, not a stakeholder meeting where a group of people sit, talk to us, and then we have very little opportunity to talk to them, or we get one opportunity to talk to them. A town hall meeting is an exchange of ideas. You generate an idea, it triggers something in me, or an objection and something in me, and we discuss it like civilized human beings. We don't get told what is going to happen to us. We participate in the process. Stakeholder meetings should be advertised. They're public. They should be advertised. They should be televised. People should have the opportunity to participate on several levels. So I think that's very important. Also mentioning that we don't want to necessarily be a tourist site or bringing buses into town. That's all true. We have always had a small town feel. Before you got here, it was a small town feel. It's still a small town feel. We don't want that changed. Simple. That's a simple thing. And as I said, my thoughts are not that organized. However, when we talk about signage, we've been beating that to death for months and months and months. And I think what I can agree with, several members of the council now have said it, we don't need to spend all that money on signs. We need to have a coherent policy about what signage should be. And I'm not sure if I heard it correctly, but somebody said, we haven't done a sign study in a long time or something like that. My hearing is bad. We've had several iterations of signs in this town since I've been here. We've had street signs installed in every community in Carefree because they were cute. What we don't need is a lot more signs. We just need relevant signs. We had circus signs. They were referred to as circus signs. Someone told us that they used the color of the Arizona flag, so that made them special. We have sundial signs, and before that we had some other kind of signs. We've had more sign changes in this town than people change underwear in some places. So we don't need more signs for the sake of changing signs. We need them if it's going to be helpful. And I think Diane mentioned something that was really important. What brings people to town is good businesses, not pretty sidewalks, not trees necessarily. The gardens are gorgeous. Business brings people to town. Good restaurants bring people to town. That's what brings people to town. That's my time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
And Mayor, I just want to say that I agree with most of what he just said. I think he's right on the signage conversation. That's exactly where we're taking the conversation with the signage. I did want to address that in the next steps, we do have periodic community workshops, which for all intents and purposes, that's the same thing as having, a town hall meeting. So the idea is that we have multiple levels through Economic Development Advisory Board, then with the community and with council. And so by the time something comes to council, we've had the opportunity to vet that through. So I do appreciate that, that's the process that I think we should be going through as well.
In fact, I agree 100%. So that's what I envision. That process that you described, that's what I would expect us to do.
That's my intention.
Yeah.
Let's make our town look great, and then we'll attract the businesses
And just to say that the small town feel, that is the position we're taking, is that we are this, that's small town, so. My time up?
No, that was something else.
Okay, Stephanie Barber.
Stephanie Barber, Carefree resident. There's been a lot of conversation about the northeast corner and the northwest corner, and I just want to point out just the key differences between the two. The northeast corner, we had a special planning area that was ratified by residents in 2012. And in 2018, we had a rezoning process, and Councilmember Johnson was able to get a good lawyer to help represent the residents when they went through the rezoning process. So it was a very open, transparent, even had a lawyer available to actually help protect the residents' interest. The northwest corner, the SPA was done during a COVID lockdown. My concern is that it was not really able for most residents to participate in this. Even when the council voted on the SPA, they voted over a Zoom meeting. And an SPA for a general plan is a major amendment. It's very, very critical that residents are involved, that they understand. There are people that I know that live 550 feet away from that resort that have absolutely no idea what an SPA means. They have no idea that that SPA says very clearly resort hospitality. So my point is that I'm not opposed to development where we need development. What I'd ask for is if we felt that we had to postpone the revision of our general plan because of COVID lockdown, we should not be doing a major amendment to our general plan in the middle of the same COVID lockdown. We've got to do this so that everybody feels like Mr. Johnson, Councilmember Johnson's neighborhood felt, that they had people representing him, that they had a lawyer representing him, that everybody in Carefree that was interested had the ability to participate. During COVID lockdown, we were all afraid to go outside, including you all who voted for it on a Zoom meeting. So my point is, there is a big difference between those two SPAs. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to make it very clear. The reason the HOA hired a lawyer was not because we wanted to bowl over the town or impose our will. It was to understand what we were up against, because when the proposal was first made at the time, we had very little time to respond to it. I think we had about 2 weeks to figure it out. So we were able, by FOIA requests and other means, to figure out this is what's coming, including building a hospital behind us. We wouldn't have known that without a lawyer. Also, we were talking about gas stations, we were talking about open drive-throughs, all kinds of stuff. We keep talking about Carefree, and we keep talking about keeping it carefree. Well, I don't think a gas station, a car wash, and a hospital is keeping it carefree. So now my understanding is that we're looking at the wash itself and what can be done with it to maximize building area. I think the builder in good faith has stepped up and wants to develop the property. I don't really think they'll get a lot of pushback unless we get something totally outrageous. And again, the lawyer was to protect us and help us figure out what was coming. So I just want to make that.
Well, again, and I was part of the council when that happened, with the HOA, in that we listened to the community, we listened to the residents behind there, and took all of that into consideration, and there were restrictions placed on it, just as we go through this process on any other piece of property that can be rezoned for purposes of the ability to continue to fund our town operations and continue to grow. So those are things that the residents around that area will also have input and be able to participate in.
Mayor and Council, I appreciate Ms. Barber's comment, because I know, that there was challenges that we had when we went through the pandemic, and we tried to do our best to try to make sure that we created an environment. We had multiple meetings. But from a policy perspective, and I firmly believe this, when you look at how you do general planning, when it comes to land use planning, that it is more advantageous to the people closest to whatever land use changes to go through an amendment process, because they are the ones that are directly going to be engaged in that particular conversation. when you go through a global edit and you try to do land use planning community-wide, the will of the community may not align necessarily with what is going to be the best thing for those specific neighbors. So you have to start hiring attorneys when you go through that zoning process. If you make it clear up front through an amendment process without having the developer pushing that from behind like we had, what it does is it allows the neighborhood to have a lot more input of the things that are going to be specifically impacting them. And so that is the rationale for going through an amendment process versus doing something like that through a general plan update, because the community could have said, you know, we want car washes there, or we want whatever, because we're far enough away from it and it doesn't bother us, or a Costco, or whatever it is they want. And so this was an idea to keep the best way we can come up, and to Councilmember Thatcher's comment, is it highly restricted? Probably more restrictive than if others globally were to make that decision, yes.
And my understanding, in again, having walked the property and meeting the owner and doing all that, is that he owns 3 houses on the back edge of that property, and that family members occupy, and he's not planning on moving. So I think in terms of what will end up there will ultimately also be something that he'll want.
Correct. Nothing's going to happen fast on that side.
I have another question, Steve. What governs the SPA? Is it that is stated in the economic plan, or in the general plan overrides the design and use of a SPA in a particular property?
Special planning area
controls
is
what?
Special planning area is actually a designation in the general plan.
But in the general plan, it states that this property is to be used for a resort.
Correct.
Right? And somewhere along the line, we did that, or it was done before all of us were here. I don't.
So
recall,
so
but-
that was the general plan was amended in 2021.
2021, okay. But because it's stated in the general plan, and if something else comes up, we're not held to that, are we?
So the uses that are allowable on the site that somebody could come through and put onto that site are based on the general plan. That's the guiding use that can be placed on there, or it can be the entitled use that it currently is, which is low density residential. So so today somebody can come build houses on there even though it says resort, because that's what the entitled right is. But somebody can come in and seek a zoning request to comply with the general plan use, which would be resort, and go through the zoning process. But they also have to comply with the conditions that have also been set through that general plan amendment, which are pretty, when you look at general plans, and that's why you use special planning areas. A special planning area allows you to design it the way you'd like to see it and really take into account all the issues that people want to see, and that comes down to having more vegetation and open space and all those other things that everybody wanted. And so that's why you go through that process of using a special planning area versus just saying resort, because resort gives you certain rights in the zoning, whatever resort allows you to do. We were able to actually nail that down a little bit, balance it a little more restrictive.
What if the council had a change of heart on what they wanted to see developed there, and the developer came in and said, hey, I got the perfect resort for this corner, and we've changed our mind on what we want to do with it. How much?
Depending on.
Is there any?
Yeah, so
reason
depending
we
on
have
how far afield they are of what the general plan allows, and that would have to be something that Dennis would need to look
Is there an
at.
issue there, Dennis?
Well, there's 2 different ways to amend a general plan. There's a minor amendment and a major amendment. So major amendments are typically done once a year. I know the state statute got changed last year, I think, so you can do more than one a year. But typically, it's a major amendment. That's a significant change to the general plan, and those are usually done once a year.
But yes, as a council, you can make that determination, or somebody comes in, you can change the general plan through an amendment process, and then you can change the zoning. But it's a linear process in some respects.
The mechanics of that is contacting you that we decided to make a change to the general plan, an amendment to the plan with respect to that corner, if we made that decision.
Right, the property, I mean, yeah, I guess it would be initiated by county and the city. If the city wanted to look into an amendment to the general plan, the city could do it. And if it was a minor amendment, that's a pretty straightforward process. But a major amendment would be a
Dennis,
more significant.
excuse me, what would be an example of a minor amendment as opposed to a major? Give a specific, concrete example.
It's right, I don't, I mean, right now, if it's,
This would be a major amendment regardless because of the size of the property and the nature. Yep.
yeah, some of
Okay.
it, if it,
But it could be, the minor could be maybe
minor
changing of
is
the
a real
verbiage of,
small change in like the zoning part of the property, or, the density goes up just slightly or something, which is allowed under the general plan rules and things like that. So the general plan defines what's a major and minor amendment.
Have you gone through this before?
Haven't gone through your general plan before, no.
No,
I've gone
but-
through major and minor amendments, yeah. They
Before.
happen all the time. In different cities.
Mayor, members of the council, the general plan and the amendment that was made in 2021 is a vision. That vision spells out if this property was to develop out as a hospitality use, a resort, what would it look like? What would it feel like? What would the setbacks be? What were the view quarters that you're going to preserve? It lays out the language that specifically restricts and addresses the concerns of the local neighborhood. Now, that doesn't guarantee that this property will ever develop out as a resort. What we know today is that it's zone rural 70,000 square foot lots. That equates to about 5 to 6 homes that could develop there. That could develop a year or two from today's date. We don't know. Depends what the underlying property owner wants to do with that property. We also know that the state law changed and it allows for short-term rentals. So these properties could be 5 or 6 lots. That could be also short-term rentals. That's allowed by right. That's how that property could develop. We cannot control that. We cannot prohibit that. So that's what it could develop under the current general plan and the future general plan. Or somebody could come in and propose a resort. And it would have to align with the vision within the general plan, that criteria, and they would have to go through a rezoning process. That process is a public process, similar to that storage facility being proposed by a private party, not the town, a private party down the street from here. They would have to go through and do a neighborhood meeting. They would have a series of them, most likely, to get the community involved and to help to mold that proposal. Then it goes to planning and zoning. They make a recommendation to the town council, and ultimately the town council needs to make a decision. Now, if they approve it and the community doesn't agree, it's something that's referable, and the citizens can vote on that respective application. That's the process in every community within the state of Arizona. So at the end of the day, this could still develop as 5 or 6 lots and may never be a resort, even though the general plan sets out a vision. And once again, that vision is, okay, if you're gonna look at something else other than those 5 or 6 lots, and it is a potential resort, this is what this property should develop out as, what it will look like, what it will feel like, what's the character. So that's the importance of having that language within the general plan. It establishes a vision to tell any private interest, this is the community expectation.
And that vision is more restrictive than just zoning it hospitality.
Correct. And then regardless, the authorization or the zoning aspect would have to be presented to the council. And if we chose not to approve the zoning, that issue is ended.
Correct.
And if we do approve the zoning, it's referable.
Which is then the residents will then vote on it on a ballot issue.
All right, so we have some additional public comments. Ariane Booster.
Hi, Ariane Buser, Carefree resident. So actually, what everyone else said, John, Diane, etc. Actually, I echo their sentiments greatly. And I guess, Sheila, you mentioned that that the neighborhoods over there in the northwest corner of Tom Darlington, that they were asked, there were some meetings, but so that happened in 2021. So that was a long time ago. And I know that there was a survey when we were doing all the prep work for the general plan updates. A survey went out to the residents, actually multiple surveys went out to the residents, and a lot of them said they did not want a resort at that corner. So, but somehow magically that language still appeared in the general plan update that we are working through right now and currently reviewing yet again. So I find that kind of interesting. I mean, I'm very happy to see it out of the economic development plan, I'll be honest, but to see it in the general plan again, even though a lot of residents said we do not want that resort language to be in there, it still managed to find its way into the draft. So very interesting. So all residents, if you're watching, please make sure you add your comments to get that language removed. I am happy to hear, though, that there might be some restrictions on that, but I think, once again, calling out a resort specifically in the general plan could be dangerous. And I understand you can do amendments and things like that, but, I don't know. I think we should actually remove that language altogether or take out the word resort or something that really does limit what can be built there, but maybe that's just my own opinion. And I think that was all I had. I didn't really have too much else to say, but I was just really kind of curious about that survey that was done with the neighbors, because I know that even for the storehouse that is being proposed, if I'm not a resident that lives within 500 feet, and I honestly would not have known about that development option or what is being proposed there unless I had specifically reached out to Stacy. So the fact that you're limiting that to only 500 feet within the radius of the area is extremely restrictive. But I hope we do have future community meetings where everyone can be involved, because honestly, whatever gets developed in this town affects the community residents in its entirety. So I greatly look forward to being involved. And Steve, I would love to be involved in that stakeholder group for the planning, so I will reach out to you about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Jan Neal?
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. I'd like to underscore what everybody has said up to now. They kind of stole some of my thunder. But a couple of comments. You and I had discussed after the traffic calming session about the town hall concept, so I would really love to see that. Councilman Hatcher and I talked about that several months ago as well. I think that would really help connect the town council, the mayor, and the residents. Relative to that spa, that northwest corner, so a couple things that disturb me and befuddle me. And one of them is, as Ms. Barber said, we certainly didn't seem to have it as a priority to work on the general plan during COVID, but somehow there was motivation to get that spa amendment done. So why was that so important? But something as important as our strategic plan, which is a general plan, was not given equal or greater focus. That makes me suspect. It also makes me suspect when I see that in the general plan draft, as Ms. Buser said, that northwest corner appears again. So where is this coming from? Where's this motivation? I don't know, but it makes one wonder if there is some ulterior motive that we don't know about. A couple of other things. I also hear almost every meeting, if not every meeting, we don't have money. And it's usually associated with something the residents have said that they want. Okay, I'll address that. Okay. Well, I was associating that.
Can you respond to comments being made when they're done? Okay, so can I step in? Not during? No, but right now? Okay, so Ms. Neal.
Finish your topic?
Okay, please finish.
So is that, thank you, as that's associated with we don't have the money, I'm drawing an analogy, just give me a minute. Okay, so if we don't have money, why do we have money for signs? You know, let's cut bait. The honorable thing to do, cut bait. We have spent almost an hour on this economic development plan. I've been seeing how long we've been talking about signs, so I won't talk about it much longer, other than we've spent at least 25% of the time on signs again. I can tell you there are people in the audience that are ready to pull their hair out. So please, the honorable thing to do is we made the investment on evaluating signs. If we agree that we have much better things to do with our money than signs, let's cut bait. We will respect you all a lot more if you do that than if we hear the word sign every time we come into this hall. And again, just on the signs, I think it's a solution looking for a problem. You know, I come from IT, and they're really good at looking for problems to meet their solutions. Thank you.
Are we done? Can I speak?
You can speak.
Okay. So the insinuation, what I'm hearing is that we are dishonest, that we are criminal, based off of your statement. Yes, ulterior motive speaks of dishonesty. And I take exception to that, and we will not tolerate that here. Now, Gary, when we discussed the strategic plan 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that was an item due to calendar that we had to discuss at the time, correct? It wasn't because of the fact that we were in a lockdown and we were taking advantage of anybody. It was a calendar item that we had to discuss, and it happened to fall during the COVID restriction.
General plan amendment,
Okay.
yes, and
Yeah.
and that was a continuum of a body of work that dated back to 2015, in which we had a planning and zoning and town council joint meeting to talk about economic development and the need to diversify our tax revenue and insulate the town from future risk. So this was part and outgrowth of those respective discussions. So there was no rush to judgment. It was, hey, we're not manufacturing more land. We are a sales tax centric model. We got to diversify our tax base and insulate ourselves from the risk of losing a big anchor business, a risk of legislative impacts that are continuing to impact our budget even this fiscal year with the loss of the rental tax, the recalibration of the construction tax, which will really adversely impact us going into the future. As we reach build out, we are not going to be generating money off of new builds. We're at build out, and remodels are not taxable if it's under $250,000. So people incrementally then make those remodels, those adjustments to their homes to circumvent that sales tax. We will not generate any construction sales tax, which is what funded our capital reserve fund. So we have to think about these things that adversely impact our bottom line. If we don't do that, we're neglecting our fiduciary responsibilities. We have to make sure that this community is solvent, not just today or tomorrow, but 5 or 10 years from now. And so that's what the council and past councils have struggled to reconcile. There's no perfect solution, but we know that we control the land use, and so looking and evaluating what are the optimal locations, the most visible locations, at those respective intersections in our town center. It's not changing the fabric. The die has already been cast on Carefree. We are a residential community. It's looking at a couple portions of our community. That's it. So these discussions date back to 2015, and those were the conversation points that led up to this general plan amendment. And then that's why we hired Steve to take us through that process and work with the neighborhood to come up with the requirements that would be embodied within the general plan to ensure that we capture it and ensure that this is driven by the community and the neighborhood, not a developer.
The idea, again, is that these are items that have been in discussion for years.
Correct.
And we've worked to do outreach to get our residents involved in the process all the way through.
And let me touch upon that, because that outreach, I heard a comment made tonight a couple times. Let's have some town hall meetings. Been there, done that. Urban Land Institute was an all-day town hall. We only had a handful of people, about 50 people, and mainly residents, but we had experts with commercial real estate background evaluating the town center. And they said, look, you need a master plan. You have this fractured ownership. You're inward facing. You have issues when people come up here, they drive right by you. You have to look at the best practices of commercial areas and central business districts. The signage is one of those elements that came out of that all-day town hall. These are experts that have multi-million-dollar portfolios. I don't know if Empire is still here. I'd be shocked for them to say, signage, you don't need it. I guarantee you, every development that they do, they have a multi-million-dollar portfolio. Signage is critical to every shopping center, every downtown area. They have signage.
And
so it's important. But we went beyond that. It wasn't just one and done. Village master plan. We had charrettes. We had workshops. These were forms of town hall where we invited the public in, and we had good participation. We had these opportunities for the public to involve, and one of the elements that was discussed was signage there. Steve's work plan speaks of continuing that discussion. It's not making a final conclusion, it's let's go out. If you remember when we tabled it, I said, yes, public comment is important. Let's have some more. Let's discuss this. Let's discuss where we are and where we're going with this and find some resolution here. Doesn't mean that we have all the answers, but one thing that we do have is public discussion, and we've always had public discussion, and we will continue to have public discussion.
That's right. In fact, we're going to continue to have public discussion. We've talked about, that's what Steve's talking about. That's what these stakeholder meetings.
Yeah,
and-
Mayor and
and
Council.
workshops and things.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. And I'll be honest with you, the signage portion of this, we contracted with Keeling Horn before I was even hired. And so this has been something that is, I don't know, I've kind of taken a little bit of a lead on it at this point, but it's something that has been a continuation of a longer conversation of trying to create a higher quality environment for the town. I mean,
I think it's important also to remember, not only to us up here on the dais, but every resident in this room, is that we are here to present ideas, to explore. And the whole signage issue, we're sick of hearing about that, but the whole signage issue was to explore an idea and to see what would be involved, what are some things that we could do to enhance our downtown, whether it be through signs, whether it be through relocating our town hall, whatever it may be, but we're presenting ideas, and that's what we're doing. We live here as well. I live across the street from Bash's. I live in the first house built in Carefree. Come by sometime if you want to see my house, okay? We are here as part of the community, and we want to enhance our community and sustain a quality of life that we've come accustomed to, just like all of you do. We don't want property taxes if we can avoid it, just like all of you. And in order to sustain that, we have to have retail sales tax revenue. And that will involve careful, sustained projects that will bring that revenue. But we have to do it the right way. We don't have a lot of corners to screw up in this town like Scottsdale does. We only have one or two left. So whatever goes on those corners, we can't put high-density housing there. We can't put a gas station, a car wash, okay? It has to be very careful that identifies with our image in this town, and to also keep our residents happy, because we're all residents here.
Well, at the last meeting, I discussed the risks to revenues in our future. And for us, we cannot sit back and just believe that our revenues are only going to increase linearly and we never have to worry about anything happening to any of our businesses or business disruption, and businesses come and go. So we have to be responsible for making sure that we have sustainable revenue for this town, not just next year, but into perpetuity. And so when we think about just the revenue side, that's one side of it. The expense side is another side of it. Our rural metro contract increased 30% in 2022. And now we have a 2.5 or 3% escalator, 2.5% escalator for 5 years. Our Maricopa County Sheriff's Office increased 17% last year, and it's pretty much like, I don't know if the cost recovery, like whatever their costs are, that's what every year we get to pay. Those are much, much, much higher than inflation. So if we think that our revenues should track inflation, our expenses may not. So we have to be prepared. You can hope for the best, but you have to plan for the worst. We can't stick our head in the sand and just think that we don't need to worry about this. This is something that it's our job to worry about it and make sure it's sustainable. So in my opinion, it would be short-sighted and irresponsible to shut the door on a potential opportunity on the corner of Carefree Highway and Tom Darlington. That is my opinion. It would be irresponsible to shut the door. We don't know what's going to happen, as Gary explained, but to say that we're going to completely shut the door on that, I think is irresponsible.
Well, Steve, part of your plan was to delve into those numbers.
Correct. Yeah, and
So instead of, because we talk in vague things, you're going to drill down and kind of refine it so at least we have a better handle on, we say expenses are going to go up X amount, where you're coming from.
yeah, Mayor Mayor Sheila, Councilmember Amoroso, and as well as Commissioner Burns from the Planning and Zoning Commission, we've been talking about how to take that information and put that together. I even put together an informational piece and then talk a little bit more openly with the community about what's going on with some of our expenses and revenues to give it a little bit more texture.
Yeah, so our operational revenues are supposed to match our operational expenses, which are our primary services to the community. Our capital reserves are used for primarily roads, culverts, and infrastructure. So the cost to maintain the roads has gone up, probably doubled. Again, much higher than the rate of inflation, but you know, this is labor and cost of petroleum products. So these are things that we could not have predicted, but they happened and we have to deal with them. And so now we have to try to look into the future, which no one can predict the future, but we have to be prepared. We can't just ignore it and think that we're all okay and we don't ever have to worry about this again. That's just completely irresponsible.
Mayor and Council, I know we can go on forever on this, and I love talking about economic development. But to go back to Councilmember Delicio's comment, this is a honey-do list for economic development. The real conversations are going to occur on these specific topics, and that's one of the things I know that the council wants me to do, and I know it's a directive of how we do business anyhow moving forward. You know, we're trying to be a little bit more transparent with these conversations with the community and give them the opportunity to be able to chime in. And so we will be doing that. And again, this plan is not approving any money. It's not approving any plans. It's all other than the plan itself. It's just giving me the opportunity to vet this stuff and bring it back to you.
Exactly. Ms. Janet Vivas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a quick response to Sheila and abutters' opinions. We received a certified letter telling us that a hotel was going to be built on the northwest corner. At a subsequent meeting of abutters, there was only one person out of 45 people who wanted the hotel, and they happened to be a friend of the landowner. We were also assured that it would be small and quaint. Instead, I found out during a Zoom meeting during the height of COVID that it would be 190 rooms with two-story buildings. We said specifically when we had the meetings, we didn't want any two-story buildings, yet they showed up in the plan, even though that plan doesn't exist anymore. Nevertheless, they were thinking of doing that. What we want to see there are homes, not a hotel. So I just wanted to let you know that, that's what the abutters prefer, homes. 6 or 7 homes on that land. Thank you.
Excuse me, did, you said you received a letter telling you what was going to be developed on that northwest corner?
Yes, we received a certified
From
letter.
whom?
From the town. Did you receive the letter as well? Yeah. I believe it must have been from the economic developer.
Yeah, so the certified letter.
I may still have the letter, I don't know, but it was,
Yeah, so Mayor and
a lot
Council.
of postage on it, and it was a letter telling us that a hotel was gonna go in there.
Yeah, so the certified letter is a requirement under the law to notify people that are going through the process of, and so it's to notify them of upcoming meetings. You know, there's a process that you have to follow through the general plan amendment. So that's what the certified, but it didn't say there was any specific project. I mean, we've never talked about any specific project. It's always been talking about it from a general plan perspective.
We did at subsequent meetings, we did speak about specifics.
Yeah, so we talked about the details of what we'd want to see included into that specific general plan amendment.
And pretty much everything that we said, it didn't come through on the plan that showed up, that I think I sent you a copy of, that a developer had put forth a plan for the, a potential resort.
Yeah, so then there was
Well, resort and a hotel are two different things. So
Well,
what did
okay.
it say? It said
A resort.
hotel?
A resort
For
hotel.
196 rooms?
190 is what they came up with. And initially, we were told that it was gonna be this tiny little, you know,
Well,
quaint.
Wait a minute. If you received a letter from or a proposal by a developer, that
Yes.
doesn't mean that the town has approved or is planning to do that.
Okay,
They can come to us with anything that, a zoo, okay? So for him to state that doesn't mean a damn thing until it goes through this council and zoning.
well,
So-
maybe it wouldn't happen,
Doesn't
but
matter what he
nevertheless,
says.
they're thinking of doing.
So he's
Such
thinking
a
about it.
thing.
I'm gonna put a zoo there. All right, well, ain't gonna happen. So I don't know, you shouldn't be, take that as, that's what's gonna happen. I mean, that's just something, I mean, anyone could state that.
So Steve, are we aware of any developers having sent out letters, or did this? Oh, okay, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
pardon me, I'm sorry. I thought she was done, Dennis.
Yeah, I finished, I pretty much said what I have
Pardon
to
me,
say.
I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to get clarity on what she was stating to the council on what she received in the mail to whom. No, I don't. I want, the mayor
No, I
had
have
a question for
questions
Steve.
for
Yeah.
Steve?
And Mayor and Council, just so you know, there's an extensive community neighborhood engagement report that's been put together, so I can make that available on the website if people want to see it, or I can, if anybody wants to get a copy of it, they can get a copy of that report. And so that walked through all of the things that we went through, and we're required to do that, by the way. And so that's, yeah, so there's a lot of communications. It includes, you know, texts and emails and information that went back and forth from various different residents. So if anybody ever wants to look at that, they can.
If you received a
You know, all this is great, but aren't we here to vote on the economic development plan? And we keep drifting to the general plan. And I think it's time, everybody needs to be heard, however. I think we need to get to the vote. I mean, I'd ask Mr. Mayor if we could get to the vote.
Okay,
That it?
that was it. That was the last public comment. You have no more slips. So that closes, thank you, Jan. Okay. Any other comments from council before we?
Well, just one closing comment. I know everybody's gonna shoot me tonight, but my interpretation is that we have the ability to, if we pass this economic plan, to review things, make changes, vote on it, not approve it or approve it, whatever the project may be, that nothing is being set on go once we do this, outside of your ability to, look at various projects and do your research and so forth, and bring in various opportunities to the town. But we still have a lot of control of what goes there and what money is spent. It's
Yep.
not on go.
Yeah, absolutely, this is just a work plan. Just a work plan.
It's like an outline for,
It's a framework.
yeah, so I just want to make that clear to everybody. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? So, hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2023-10, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Carefree, Arizona, approving the economic development component of the town council strategic work plan.
Motion to approve Resolution 2023-10, approving the 2023-2024 Strategic Economic Development Work Plan.
Second.
Any other comments from council? So hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you everyone for participating. Item number 11, review, discussion, and possible action to approve a contract with CEC in order to meet Arizona Department of Environmental Quality requirements. Mr. Millstone.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This is apropos. So this, I heard talk about revenue and expenditures. This item is an unfunded mandate from our friends at ADEQ. So what we're looking for is to be able to enter into a contract with
I'm sorry, Mark, can you speak into the microphone, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't hear you that well.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So what we're looking for is to be able to enter into a contract with EEC in the amount just under $22,000 for an unfunded mandate, and it's in two parts. The first part, so ADEQ runs under a general permit for stormwater quality. It's a 5-year permit. Every 5 years it's got to be updated. So currently we're about in the 3rd year of the newest general permit, and it states that every municipality needs to do stormwater sampling, which we've never done before, in our washes. And since we're a smaller town, thankfully we only have to do 3 tests in different locations in our washes. So we've want to contract with the EC to put in-ground samplers to take stormwater samples, which will be sent to a lab and will be tested for 150 some odd chemicals. It's a characterization test to find out what's flowing in our washes. So that's part one of this request. The second request is back on November 6th. We had a full day audit in-house with ADEQ. It was a wonderful experience, let me tell you. I hope to never go through that again. The outcome of that was that we had 10 items of deficiencies or items that needed to be corrected. For instance, our stormwater management plan wasn't up to date. So that's one of the items. So again, working with EEC, the second part of that request is to have them help us go through those 10 deficiencies and essentially get on ADEQ's good side again. So essentially that's what we're looking for with this item number.
Questions or comments from council?
That's this here, this John, yeah?
That's correct, Councilman.
Yeah, so basically it's a ADEQ, is that a trickle down from the feds to the state, and ADEQ tells us what to do.
Right.
And they tell us what to do. It costs us $20,000 and change. They don't give us any money. They just tell us to go do it. And we don't really have any say in the matter.
That's correct, Mayor. And so the other part of that I forgot to mention is that the town has decided to be more proactive in this respect, so that Gary has determined that we're going to put in an amount of $26,000 in the capital improvement program, because under this general permit, which only has 2 more years to go, we only have to do 3 of these tests, but who knows, we may have to do 3 tests each year under the next general permit. So it's a great idea to put some funding in the CIP to be able to handle more unfunded mandates as they come down the road.
What we're here today to do is approve money to do what we're being told to do in this fiscal year. In fact, if I recall, by March, we have to get this stuff done.
I don't believe that's correct, Mayor. I think we
March
have,
2025, oh.
yeah. I think we have a little bit more time, yes.
Any other comments or questions?
Mayor, just to clarify that future budget item won't be within the CIP, it will be in our operational expense. So there'll be a line item under engineering that will deal with MS4.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
I have a question. Do you know where the collection sites will be for the 3 elements?
Thank you, Councilman. We actually get to pick them. So we've had a long battle with ADQ because all the other municipalities within the region that need to do sampling have always been doing sampling. And it's because there are 2 waters that they look at, waters of the U.S. and the other water, which I don't remember, it's called outstanding something waters. Neither of these waters pass through Carefree. So even though we aren't under the general permit for testing in those type of waterways, the new general permit says it doesn't matter, you need to do tests anyway. So it's been an argument, and that's why we're essentially 3 years out from testing, because we were going back and forth. Do we need to test? Do we not need to test? And they finally came out and determined through the audit that yes, we need to test, and it's going to cost us to do that.
Anything else? So I would accept a motion to authorize the town to enter into a contract with the EEC in the amount of $21,693 for responses to the Arizona Department of Economic Quality and for a sampling plan which meets ADEQ requirements.
Is that the number we're gonna, Gary
That is the number.
thought about adjusting the 26th?
That's for the budget of next
Oh,
year,
okay.
budgeting process of next year.
Pardon me.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to authorize the town to enter into a contract with the EEC in the amount of $21,693 for response to the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality and for a sampling plan which meets ADEQ requirements.
Second.
Any other comments or questions from council? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you, Mark. Item number 12, review, discussion, and possible approval of Resolution 2023-11, adopting the municipal traffic calming policy.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So since we last talked about the traffic calming policy, I believe it was October, the council determined that it'd be best to go and have some workshops. So we did have 2 workshops in I think that was actually October. I don't remember the dates, actually. Thank you, September. So it must have been August that we last talked about the traffic calming. We had 2 workshops that were very well attended. I think the residents were pretty favorable about what we were discussing. They kind of liked the policy. They had some text changes in the policy, which we made. I think, again, it was a very good experience. And the whole reason we have the policy is so that we can improve upon the safety and traveling capacity of our roadways for not only traffic, but as well as walkers and bicyclists and things of that nature. So we've updated the neighborhood traffic calming policy. I was told to talk about we, in accordance with Gary, have determined that we're gonna set aside an amount of $15,000 for each year under the neighborhood traffic calming policy. And it's gonna be a first come, first serve, system. So, if we run out of money, we run out of money. So that means either one of two things: the residents foot the bill for whatever is above and beyond that amount of money, or we just don't do the project and wait till the following year, in which we would get a new amount of funding again. So that's pretty much it. We have a resolution that we're required, since we're implementing this policy, and we're just asking that you approve the resolution tonight so that we can add the traffic calming policy as one of our policy statements within the town.
Okay, any questions or comments from council?
Mark, I have some concerns about this, and I'll tell you why, just some food for thought. This may add a layer of bureaucracy to an already overburdened staff. Asking residents to pay money so traffic safety can be studied on their street. I have talked to some people, it's a bit of a put-off, if you will. My concern is that this may actually discourage citizens from coming forward because the process, well, I'll just be blunt, is the hassle factor. So I just throw that out there to think about, because does anybody else have this type of policy? Does Scottsdale do this? Does Phoenix do this?
Thank you, council member. So, yes, we mirrored this on the city of Scottsdale's policy. So it's essentially similar, very similar to what they're doing. The reason why we're asking for fees, and so the main reason we're doing the policy again is, you know, we had a first take on the issue on Bloody Basin, as you're well aware. It wasn't transparent. It was a reaction to issues which traffic and accidents, collisions and whatnot. A lot of people use Bloody Basin, are inconvenienced, so a lot of people were complaining about that. So our intent was to come up with a policy that's transparent and works for anywhere in the town, so that we can have a system to implement these safety improvements. So thank you for that, Councilman, but this is where we're at. If the council sees that we shouldn't go this way, you know, now's the time to speak up about that.
Mark, what about just simply, and I don't want to get too far off the track of this, but installing, like what we have on Tom Darlington that flashes speed?
Radar speed signs?
Right.
That's one of the options under our traffic calming policy, and absolutely. Our intent is to look at where the concerns are coming from, what type of road, how heavily traveled, whether it's a cut-through road, whether it's not a cut-through road. If we put devices on a certain road, is that gonna make the traffic transfer onto a different nearby road because now they don't want to go over these speed humps or whatnot? But yes, the traffic radar sensors are definitely an option we can use. After we get the list of interested persons, then we would do our analysis, do our data analysis, and try to work with the residents to come up with an agreeable system so that we can implement safety improvements.
Yeah, the idea is to have basically a policy, a format, a way to go forward, rather than knee-jerk reactions. We try to please people, and then we please a handful, and we put off a whole bunch of them. And this brings more people to the table to arrive at a solution.
Correct, Mayor. Well put. Thank you.
And these traffic calming workshops we had were great. And my hat's off to you for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Because it's a model for what we're going to do for doing workshops going forward. And some good ideas came out of it. Some of the ideas that we talked to the captain tonight about, and some things that we're moving forward on independent of whatever we're doing here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor.
It's
So I think it's important that we give residents in neighborhoods an opportunity to explore the option of some type of traffic calming if there's just, say, 1 or 2 people in a neighborhood who are very concerned about speeding. And this comes up a lot with me. Not a lot, but there are certain areas that people are concerned about in their neighborhood. So what this does is it makes sure that it's not just 1 or 2 people in that neighborhood that are concerned. They have to get a good portion of the neighbors on board to move forward with this. So they can then find out whether or not it's just them or if the entire neighborhood is concerned as well. And when you look at the policy, the amount of neighbors that you have to have sign on to it, and then 80% of the neighbors within, is it 1,000 feet of any traffic calming?
It depends upon what kind of road.
Okay. Well, so there has to be really good neighborhood buy-in. And instead of us, town hall really, on both sides of we want traffic calming, we don't want traffic calming, the neighborhood has to make the decision. And that's what we're doing here, is we're giving them the opportunity to make the decision together. And if they want to move forward together, that's fine. But if it's only 1 person out of 20, then that's not going to happen. So this way we make the neighborhood determine it instead of us trying to field yes, no, we need it, we don't need it, we don't want it. So it's a policy to allow the neighborhood's autonomy on determining where we go with this. That's all this is. It's a process for them to follow and understand.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Well put also. And just as an aside, one of the residents in a road that had a concern, and apparently it was a concern about a younger person on a very high-speed motorcycle that would drive ridiculously through the town. And this was before the policy again and everything else. And I just, I was talking to this person on the phone and I said, well, would you go for speed humps? And his response was, hell no. He didn't want to inconvenience all of his neighbors because of one pass-through person who was driving erratically. So we're not going to force anything down anybody's throats. We're going to work with the residents to come up with an agreeable solution. Thank you.
I don't have an issue with the process, Mark. It's more of asking people to pay money. So maybe the way to fix this is to have a capped fee for the neighborhood, whatever that might be. I mean, we can't ask people to come up with $5,000-$10,000, if you will. So have we thought about, we run out of money and somebody's got a good cause and they come to us and say, all right, here's the signatures, we've done everything. How do we do that?
Thank you. So, Councilman, so we were concerned about that because it depends upon what street you're going to do the improvements on, how long the improvements are going to be, how intensive they're going to be. Like we talked about during our workshops, the simplest and least costly would be just to paint the speed limit in the roadway. Now that's not going to cost us anything. We just have to buy a decal and my own staff can paint the speed out on the street. Now whether or not that's going to work very well, we don't know. But yeah, that's kind of why we have a sliding scale on the costs, because we don't know how long the improvements are going to be, if it involves more than one street, things of that nature. So I understand where you're coming from, and I don't really have a good solution for that question.
I guess we'll have to wait till we get there, huh?
I believe so, yes. And so, as I talked about in my workshop, this isn't my, I drafted this policy, absolutely, but it's not my policy, it's not your policy, it's the town's policy. So I'm really glad we got input from the residents to help us formulate this policy.
And earlier in the discussion, we had talked about other communities that are doing this. Cave Creek last night had this on their similar policy on their agenda.
Yes, Mayor, that's correct, yep.
Mark, bringing up what Mike was saying, what if someone does come with a, you know, a real issue, serious issue that's been identified, really a safety standpoint, that say, I think we need to have a method to address that, even though we may have already spent our $15,000 cap. I think that would be not appropriate if we didn't have a mechanism to address it financially.
We would have a mechanism.
You can't say, well, okay, it's a safety issue, we'll see you in 9 months.
Well, we don't have a mechanism today.
Well, we have
What we do is
$15,000
we use it. We don't. That's next year. But what we do is we use our brains, we have a contingency fund, and we address the problem if
Okay,
we
all right.
decide to do so.
We
Yeah.
have that?
Mayor, members of the council, so we don't have a policy today. So this establishes some boundaries, an envelope of how we will deal with these issues. It associates a funding mechanism, and this is kind of a shooting from the hip, you know, how much is appropriate given our respective budget. So the other part of this is having skin in the game from the neighborhood. Obviously, a neighborhood could come up with the Taj Mahal as far as traffic calming solutions, and there's many solutions out there, but when you say you have to share in those costs, the size of that project automatically is adapted. So we certainly can pivot and talk about it depending upon the safety issue. That's a policy decision that the council has the discretion to make from a funding perspective. But at least now we have some uniformity in a policy to deal with these various requests that we receive over a fiscal year.
Those two speed bumps, the speed bumps on Bloody Basin, weren't they like $8,000 or $12,000 a piece or something?
I think the material cost, council member, was, yes, around 8,000. And then, you know, technically you have to put in our staff's fee for the time they spent doing that.
Maybe we could reserve in our capital fund for this somehow when we do our budgeting next year.
So that would be a future line
Future.
item in the CIP,
A
yes.
set aside,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
That's a very good idea, thank you.
So we have a mechanism to draw on if we need to do it. to
Correct.
Meet the safety issues.
Thank you,
My own
Councilman.
concern.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Mark. That was well done.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, I entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2023-11, a resolution of the mayor and Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there is a, Colleen. Come on up. Very sorry. Thank you for flagging me.
Hi, Colleen Rose Skirty, Carefree resident. I actually just wanted to talk about this because I spoke about this when it first came up a couple months ago, and I was against it, and I'm still against it, but I'm for it. So what I want to say is, I just don't think we need all this stuff in all these towns, and I will tell you, these traffic calming things are going on in every town, in every city across the country. And I've seen evidence of it, so I do know that it is occurring. That being said, I'm okay with having a policy, for the town to have a policy if there's going to be an issue. But again, the residents, you have to have skin in the game, because a lot of people will complain about something, but if they have to go through the work, if they have to go talk to their neighbors, if they have to pay some money, oh, well then maybe it's not that much of a problem. If it really is a problem and a safety concern, it should be addressed, and they should have some skin in the game. And I would do the same if it was on me and my street and I felt that way. But again, I also might think twice, well, yeah, maybe I was irritated at that one driver, but maybe it's not that big of a problem, and just painting the speed limit might just take care of the problem. So having the policy is fine. Do I think that we're gonna need to budget and you're gonna go through your $15,000 every year? I don't. Because I think most residents are not gonna go through that effort and not wanna pay that money and not wanna be that invested. But if there is an issue or a time when we need it, the policy will be in place. Thank you.
Well said, thank you. Okay, that is the end of the public comment on that. Okay, so Can I have a resolution, a motion to approve resolution 2023-11?
Motion to approve Resolution 2023-11, adopting the municipal traffic calming policy.
Second.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. You're pretty popular tonight, Mark.
Agenda item number 13, review, discussion, and public hearing to approve the Town of Carefree floodplain ordinance 2023-05, replacing ordinance 2019-03. This is the second reading.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. So, yes, this is my easiest item tonight. We looked at this last month, and essentially what happened, we had an impromptu audit from flood control through a Zoom call. And one of the major outcomes of it was that they looked at our ordinance and determined it was old and didn't meet current standards. So they pretty much redlined it. I looked through all the red lines, agreed with them, and revised the document in accordance with what they were looking for. So, and this is where it gets a little gray for me, but if the council approves the ordinance today, and I'm gonna hand it over to Candace, our town clerk will have to notice it, and I'll let her talk about that part.
Mayor and council, it's standard operating procedure, so it's just published in a general circulation paper, and we also post them online, post it physically to notify the public that this goes into effect 30 days after it was passed.
Okay, your standard operating procedure.
Thank you, Candace.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? So this requires a public hearing, so I'll open up the public hearing. I have no slips, but if anyone would like to speak, you're most welcome. So hearing none, the public hearing is closed. And I would ask for a motion to approve the Town of Carefree floodplain ordinance 2023-05, replacing ordinance 2019-03.
Make a motion to approve the Town of Carefree floodplain ordinance 2023-05, replacing ordinance 2019-03.
Second.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Item number 14. Review, discussion, and possible action to approve Resolution 2023-12, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the Arizona Department of Revenue and the Town of Carefree for the administration, collection, audit, and/or licensing of transaction privilege tax. Ms. Contreras.
Mayor and council, you're going to get my Lauren Bacall presentation today, so I apologize in advance. So, at any rate, in 2015, it was legislated that all municipalities and taxing districts would go through the Arizona Department of Revenue to collect their taxes, do all the audits, everything to do. Cities and towns no longer do it themselves. They can't contract it out. So the League of Cities and Towns went through extensive work to generalize and agree to a contract that all the municipalities and taxing districts agreed to. And we entered into that, and we are part of it. This updated contract is nothing more than clarifying language on audits, as well as solidifying the personal information and the proprietary information that's required from the taxes.
Okay, very good. Any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2023-12, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the Arizona Department of Revenue and the Town of Carefree for the administration, collection, audit, and/or licensing of transaction privilege tax.
Motion to approve Resolution 2023-12, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the Arizona Department of Revenue and the Town of Carefree for the administration, collection, audit, and/or licensing of transaction privilege tax.
Second.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item number 15, review, discussion, and possible action to authorize approximately $21,500 of town censor capital funds for Easy Street storefront, median landscape. Councilman Miller, why don't you walk us through that?
Yes. So I provided a pretty detailed description at the last meeting, so I'll be a little more brief this evening, and it's getting a little bit late. But we're proposing trees, plants, and other ground cover for the islands that start from Athens, work their way around Easy Street, ending at Carefree T. So the islands are going to receive alternating trees. We have a Texas Mountain Laurel alternating with a Texas Mountain Ebony, and that's the primary canopy tree to be used. And the intent is to create a unifying look. The shrubs will end up being jojoba and giant hesperaloe, and the accent plants will be golden beryl and Moroccan mounds with a few agave pereis. So the idea is drawing species that are living in the garden today, and the idea is to create a visual link from the garden to the retail sidewalk. And I think that it will help unify the look, and I think it will dress up the community. I think it's something very much needed at this time. So I'm looking forward to it.
So if we were to approve this, when would you expect it to be done?
Well, we're going to put in benches very soon. I think we already have the benches. That they need to be placed in a cement base, so that happens first. Then the trees go in because they occupy, this much earth. So all the trees are unloaded from a crane, and then we dig the holes. We put the trees in. That could probably happen in 2.5 weeks, hopefully. I think part of this will fall to the schedule of Desert Foothills. So I'm working with Kevin Lafferty, and they've been pretty agreeable to date. So by the time everything is in with irrigation, I think we're out there almost 2 months.
Okay, so
to do it.
Okay, end of the year, January. Something like that. Okay. So, any other comments or questions?
No, just look forward to it.
Yes.
Oh, the gentleman here?
Mike Brown, Carefree, I apologize.
No, you're anxious. You want to go home.
We all want
I gotta do stuff. Okay, Mr. Braun.
Mike Brown, I just am asking, is the Texas tree a native plant to Arizona?
Can
Go
I
ahead,
answer
you
that?
talk.
It is not a native, it's not one of the desert trees that we typically use in a natural environment. We looked at using the native plant palette, which is typically the Palo Verde, Foothills Palo Verde, the native multi-trunk mesquite, the ironwood, and then there's the desert willow. Those trees we determined were not as successful for this application. We find that the Palo Verde variant gets pruned too severely and it breaks in the wind. The mesquite tree grows to a size that is unmanageable for the location. The desert willow is frost sensitive in the winter, so we lose its canopy. That leaves us with the ironwood. The problem with the ironwood is that we're limited to a 36-inch box for the fit in these islands. 36-inch box, understand, is this wide and it's this deep. The largest plant that comes in a 36-inch box will be no more than 4 feet high. And the growth rate on an ironwood is the slowest of all of the desert plants. So we'll be looking at a decade and a half until the canopy is doing something for us.
Can I plant a Texas whatever in my yard?
Of
Yes.
course.
I don't think so. You got a restriction on native plants.
Yeah, that's, you can plant a Texas ebony in your respective yard. We have many throughout the community. We actually have them in our desert gardens. It's a drought-tolerant plant. It's planted in association with xeriscapes, so you find them throughout many landscapes in Carefree.
I guess that I'm wrong. I apologize. My feeling is that in Carefree, I know it was in Scottsdale where I used to live, okay, and I like it better up here, was you could not plant non-native trees or plants. And I understand that if it's a Texas plant, I don't think that's native. That's my only point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, go right ahead.
So, I indicated that we're trying to have continuity from the existing gardens. The existing gardens have more Texas ebony than any other canopy tree in the garden. The next closest tree to that would be a mesquite, and then the Palo Verdes. And we're using the Texas Mountain Laurel and the Texas Ebony for durability, frost sensitivity, and it provides an abundant canopy, and the growth rate is proper for our expectations of height.
Yeah, dialing in this canopy business is a trick because we don't want to block storefronts, signs. We worry about people hurting themselves on thorns. We worry about trees getting blown over. It's really threading a needle, coming up with a plant palette that's acceptable. And you've done a very good job.
It is. We've looked at this extensively over the last several months.
Okay, any other comments from council? Nope. Okay, hearing none, I would ask for a motion to authorize $21,500 of town center capital funds for Easy Street storefront median landscape.
Motion to authorize $21,500 of town center capital funds for Easy Street storefront median landscape.
Second.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Miller. Well done.
Thank you. Nice work.
Item number 16, call to the public. Those wishing to address the council need not request permission in advance. The public may address the council on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of an open call to the public, individual members of the public body may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the public body, may ask staff to review a matter, direct staff to study the matter, reschedule the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date, or may ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. However, the council may not discuss or take legal action at this time. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. So when I call your name, please come on up and state your name and address, and we'll have our call to the public. Mr. Anton Wilkie.
Council, I am Anton Wilkie, resident and voter for 15 years.
Please speak up.
Sorry. I've been a resident and a voter for 15 years, or nearly. I'm here to speak about the economic development portion of the general plan. So last month and this month, we talked about the plan, even though it's not on the agenda. But last month, both the council and the residents spoke about economic projection of 3 to 3.5 million in a study that would be necessary for additions to town revenue by 2030 on our current trajectory. I'm broadly familiar with that study. It's still our best projection, even though it's a few years old, so planning has to accommodate it. And there are only two possibilities for raising money: sales tax revenue or property tax. In May, we had an election, and I think the lesson the council drew from that is that Property tax as a plan is probably not first choice or second choice, not desirable. So where can the money come from? It's only 3 significant areas, also discussed tonight. There's 2 special planning areas in the town center. The SPA near Cave Creek Road has the most potential and could raise as much as $1 million or more, though it has high infrastructure costs and there's a lot of uncertainties. The town center's potential is a few $100,000 from existing businesses, because there are already businesses there and the increments will be smaller, and can only exceed $500,000, I believe, if the last few remaining empty parcels and the town hall lot are aggressively developed. The SPA near Tom Darlington has opposition. Obviously, we heard that tonight. If developed as envisioned in the draft general plan, it could be approximately $1 million. If all 3 are developed successfully, they add up to about $2.5 million, maybe 3 if they go really well. Success is not assured for any, but it's required for all to make fill the gap that we are now projecting to have. This is the feedback period. Feedback is important. It's important for the council to acknowledge it and pay attention. But the council also has a fiduciary duty to the town as resident, and the general plan just has to add up. The current draft works just barely, and realistically we can avoid a property tax only if all 3 elements work out well. None are expendable. The removal of any one element could only be accompanied by the expectation of a future property tax. There are uncertainties, but in the end it's just math, really. I know this isn't news to the council members. I can tell that tonight. In our current situation for this general plan, you can oppose the property tax and promote aggressive development of both SPAs in the town center, or you can oppose or restrict one or more of the 3 elements and support a property tax instead. The position that cannot be accommodated is opposition to a property tax and opposition to development of one of the SPAs or other restrictions on development. That may well be what a resident wants, but it's the duty of the council to explain that it just cannot work as policy. And if it cannot work as policy, it cannot be the policy of the general plan. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sarah Gondel.
Sarah Gondel, Carefree resident. I want to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Crane, the town council, and all of the employees of Carefree for all the work they do every day to manage our town so well and so efficiently. And I think it would be nice if we all come into the meeting with the assumption that everything they're doing is to better the quality of life in our town. Well, I personally support property tax for services as a way to avoid development. A supermajority of the town rejected property tax in the last election. So I've been watching these discussions of open space and of lack of development with great interest. And to restate again the obvious, if we don't want property tax, and we don't apparently, we need development to raise sales tax to pay for our town's expenses. And I've heard a lot of people come in and say the town isn't listening to them. They want open space, they don't want development. The town is listening, but open space unfortunately doesn't fund services which cost money. So we can't have open space, water, good roads, a well-kept town center, increases in the services we currently fund, including our current fire service, with diminished sales tax revenue and no property tax. So now that we've voted out new taxes, we have to move forward constructively in a way to get what we all want, which is reasonable development on our privately held available lots to create sustainable revenue and services for the town without destroying its charm. I hope that we can all come together to do that. The target business types for the 2 SPA lots being discussed for development were decided with input from the community. One has been deprioritized in the economic development plan, and I hope that it won't be deprioritized in the general plan, because while it might end up being housing, we should leave that open, and we might need it. I believe our town council is smart and experienced. I think we're doing our best for the town. We're lucky to have them, and we're lucky to have the town employees in their experience in economic development, in municipal finance, and in municipal management. And, you know, I understand that not everyone wants to speak here, but for those of you who are, you know, sitting silently or watching at home, I would just ask that to give input on the general plan and to take a look at it, and to thank your town council and town employees for all they're doing, because if we stop speaking because of conflict, we end up with undesirable outcomes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Marianne Bucer.
Hi again, Ariane Bucer, Carefree resident. One clarification. I think I heard earlier today that the Tom Darlington and Carefree, Tom Darlington Carefree Highway, it was rural. It's zoned for rural 70. I think I heard that. I'm not sure. But in the general plan, it says specifically a resort. So rural 70, from what it sounds like, was about 5 to 6 homes, but in the general plan, it actually calls out specifically that it will be a resort. So I think that needs to be correct in terms of what the actual zoning is. So if it is rural 70, we should put that in the general plan. Oh, is it?
Hey, this isn't a discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Continue. No,
I'm
you
just
can
saying. Oh,
continue.
okay. I'm just sorry. I was just saying that in the general plan, it's listed as something different than home. So that's all I was saying. Like, keep with what the zoning is. And if there's an amendment in the future, fantastic. But we should keep it with what the current zoning is. That's all I was trying to say, sir. Okay. And I think one thing too is that I understand Sarah's point. She just said we, don't need a park here, but I actually 100% disagree. Carefree does not have a park. Carefree deserves a park. It is once again a legacy for this town to have an open space where all can come to enjoy, residents and visitors alike. And there's actually a lot of data, very positive data, that backs up having a park in a residential area. It increases home values. It actually brings people to the town. It helps to bring people to the town to see the businesses that are here. So I actually think it would actually be extremely beneficial for the town, but of course that's my own personal opinion. If you want to see what can happen to beautiful open space, just go down the street and look at Windmill and Stagecoach and look how they've decimated that corner and plowed it under to put in homes in Scottsdale. That could be what happens to our last remaining open space here in Carefree. I think everyone should go take a look and see how they've displaced all the animals, all the saguaro, all the trees, all the native plants that were once there. It's gone, absolutely gone, bulldozed forever, okay? So if you really want to understand what can happen to a beautiful piece of open space that is currently pristine Sonoran Desert, which deserves to be protected in perpetuity, just have a look right down the street and you'll see what we're trying to fight to save and why we want a park. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that closes our call to the public as the last slip. Have a motion to adjourn?
I do want to say something really quick, because it's well within our right to address.
Nobody criticized you.
We can't respond to any items presented.
Okay, you can respond to criticism of you personally, but nobody criticized any individual members of the council that I heard,
Okay.
unless I missed something.
Can I make a statement?
No.
Okay. All right.
Have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Adjourned. Thank you very much.
You and I don't know each other, but I think you ought to be able to say something.